Hey folks, Julian here. If the show sounds a little different to you this week, that's because we weren't able to record our local audio like we normally do, so this is the raw Skype call. I haven't edited it yet as I'm recording this, but it sounds pretty good. Like, the audio quality is pretty good. Really the reason that I'm making this message is just that there will be some crosstalk that I'm not going to be able to take care of like I normally would when I'm editing, so just bear with us on that. But the show is a pretty fantastic one, so I hope you guys enjoy. Thanks. This week on NWP, like, we just give Justin a bunch of Scooby snacks and try to coax him out of the mystery machine, man. Episode 163. We cover everything while bearing it all. I am Julian. I'm joined as always by Justin.
I'm here. I'm very afraid, as I always am.
You should be. You should be very afraid.
I'm usually very nervous at all times. So.
Yes. And a very special guest who almost broke from my intro. I could see it on the camera. It was wonderful.
Sorry.
He is a teacher. He is a writer. He is now an author. He is also a podcaster, including helping found this very podcast right here. But more than that, he is one of my oldest internet friends. We have, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Rob Ottone.
Hello, hello. How are you?
Oh,
hey, Julian.
So good. Yes,
Julian.
Sir. Yes, Justin.
We might have to do this over because did we ever count down to record? Locally?
No, because we're just using the
oh,
recording.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Just edit that out then.
Rob, it's great to have you back on the show after all this time. I think that there's a little bit of like catching the listeners up to speed, since, well, I mean, we have listeners now, which is not something that we really had back when you were on the show. We had like a handful, but now we actually have like a fair amount of listeners, like more than I think that I even am aware of. But yes, Rob helped found Nerds Without Pants. He's also part of the reason that it's called Nerds Without Pants. But Rob and I go back all the way back to 2005 to LiveJournal, where we found each other and really hit it off. And ever since then, I have called Rob my New York twin because we just really lined up on a lot of things. And even though we haven't gotten to talk a lot in recent years, like, Rob is still one of my favorite people on the planet, and just glad to have him back for this special episode. Your first full episode since episode 17, which was way back in 2013. And then I also interviewed you for our 75th/3rd anniversary, or 75th episode/3rd anniversary. But yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Happy to have you back after all that time.
I'm happy to be here, and I'm so glad that you guys are having me on.
Oh, definitely.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
It is going to be a lot of fun. A little bit of housekeeping before we jump into things. So we are nearing the end of the year, which also means that we're nearing the end of our regular format episodes. We've probably got, I think, like 3, maybe 4 in the normal Stage Select Consumption Junction cage match format. And then we'll have our music special, we'll have our State of the Generation episode, and then we'll go dark for a few weeks so that we can catch up on some games before we come back in like late January to talk about our favorite games that came out, or that we played rather, in 2019. They don't necessarily have to be games that came out this year, because, you know, we definitely go back and play old stuff too. So just to let you guys know, that's what's going to be going on. Also, I was on Games My Mom Found for the most recent episode where they talked about Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver, which we'll be talking about later on this episode. And just to remind folks that also Justin was on a couple months ago for their Super Mario World 2 episode, so definitely check those out if you haven't gotten a chance to. Mike Alberton, the host of Games My Mom Found, will actually be on our next episode, and we'll also be recording that a day early, so I'll definitely let you guys know the deadlines for stage select and consumption, and video game cage match for that, because you'll have like one less day to submit stuff. And then be on the lookout for the secret code phrase. It's Justin's turn to lay that out for us. And yeah, I think that's it. So without further ado,
seems like it.
Let's jump into some stage select. This week's stage select is my pick, and so before we actually really get into it, I feel that, especially having Rob here, we need to talk about the legacy, because this is our annual Halloween Havoc episode, and Rob created the first Halloween Havoc episode. And so I just and to bring Rob up to speed, and also to our newer listeners, so we had Halloween Havoc, then we had Halloween Havoc 2, the Startling, then we had Halloween Havoc. That's with the 3 in place of the...
That's clever. I like what you did with that one, yeah.
Then we had The Halloween Havoc, which was the gritty reboot directed by Rob Zombie.
Okay.
Of course.
Then we had Return of the Halloween Havoc.
Right.
And then The Curse of the Halloween Havoc. And so I think now it's only fitting, after all of this time, to have Halloween Havoc, Rob's Revenge.
It's a good name. I like it.
Awesome. Thank you. I love that. Yes.
So what we're going to do is, because Justin is, you're the newest host, you came on this year, so this is your first Halloween Havoc episode, but you are a noted and admitted coward.
Yeah.
Who does not like horror, and does not like horror video games.
Nope.
Which posed a bit of a problem for me coming up with a topic for this horror video game episode. Right. But then I had the brilliant idea to have a horror intervention for you. And we're just going to get together and brainstorm some stuff that we think you might like. And Rob is a huge horror aficionado, big movie geek, big game geek. And so, a lot of depth and breadth to his knowledge there. And we also have some great suggestions from our listeners. But before we get into all that, I really kind of wanted to try to take a few minutes to get to the bottom of like where your fear comes from and why you dislike it so much. Because I think, and we'll probably, we'll definitely talk about it, but I think definitely for Rob and I, like there's such a thrill to being scared.
Yeah, something I don't get. Right. And I don't know if I ever will. So my main thing with horror is I don't like jump scares at all. Like, I think they are a cheap way to scare people, and they actively make me angry. Like, I actually get physically mad when I am jump scared by something. It is not a good feeling. I know people like you, and I'm sure Rob does too. Like, when that happens, you go, and then you're like, you laugh or you go, oh, I'm in no danger, but that was fun. I don't find it fun. I just get angry. And that just makes me want to turn whatever I'm playing off. And it also like invokes this sense of like, I don't know, anxiety. Like, now I'm worried that that's going to continue to happen. So I no longer trust a thing. And if I'm walking into like a situation where like, oh, I know this thing's going to happen, or I'm afraid this thing's going to happen, now I don't want to play the game anymore, because I'm just constantly worried that you're going to do this little cheap, what I consider to be a cheap trick to me again. Yeah. And it's not my thing. I don't hate all horror. Like, I actually like a lot of the aesthetics that it has and a lot of the psychological stuff. I really like Japanese, like psychological horror and stuff like that. I think that shit's cool. I like the feeling of being creeped out, but I don't like being like jump scared. Like, there's a killer around this corner. And when it comes to video games, I find it especially hard to play anything in first person, because then I can't separate the character. Like a third person game, not as bad. I can watch a lot of the third person games, like your Dead Space and stuff like that. Like I don't play them, but recently I tried out the RE2 remake, and I didn't find it too bad. But like at one point I got to the room where I was about to go in and fight the Licker, and I was like, I don't want to do it. It's going to do something to me, and I just don't want to do it. And that was where that game ended for me, and I don't see myself going back to it.
At the beginning? The first encounter with the Licker when he crawls past the window?
No, I actually got through that one okay. Here's the thing about that game.
But that's literally the only scary part in Resident Evil 2.
Well, the remake
is a lot different.
Is it different?
They do a lot to mix things up.
And they move certain scares around and stuff like that. This one in particular, like the Licker crawling past the window, I kind of knew when it was coming because I had seen people play through it before, and it still actually got me. But at that point, I knew it was like kind of coming. I don't know how to explain that.
Yeah. Resident Evil 2 was one that I would almost recommend, but then I remembered like that you wouldn't be able to handle like Mr. X like crashing through like walls and stuff like that to get to you, because like that's you know. And I will say that like I think, Rob, you might be in agreement with me, but like even I think like people who like horror tend to not like the cheap jump scare, right? It's so played out at this point.
It's a cheap gag relied on by people who don't know how to really scare you.
Right.
Like, it's fine if you're going to use a jump scare in addition to, a narrative that's going to actually, set fear deep within you. Like The Exorcist does that. It sets like a very deep rooted spiritual or soul based fear in you. But yeah, it also has some jump scares for the, the goons in the back. Like it's kind of appeal to all audiences kind of thing. But like, I'm with you. Like, I'm not a jump scare guy. I don't like gore. I don't like jump scares. So like, for me, a lot of horror video games just don't deliver outside of the jump scare. And even the atmosphere, like, there's only so many creepy corridors and underground tunnels that I can look at, or space corridors where this guy's got this huge light on his back, like just referencing Dead Space kind of thing. Like, it's only so many times, and after a while it's just kind of meh. So when Julian mentioned this idea to me, I really made kind of a conscious effort to kind of go outside of that in my thinking of good horror games to recommend to you or to like talk about even. But I'm totally with you. I'm not a jump scare guy. They do work, obviously, because it's the jolt, but it is a trick relied on by a magician that doesn't have a lot of skill.
Yeah, when Batman Arkham City did it to me, I felt betrayed by that game, and I never went back. Like, I was like, no, this is bullshit. Fuck you. I'm done. I can't do it.
So let me ask you this, because Arkham Asylum and Arkham City both had some pretty scary bits to them, but you played those just fine, right?
I'm know if
the Scarecrow stuff was better because it was more just like...
It's more like psychological stuff.
Right.
And I also like in Arkham City, like that there's like a first jump scare in like the intro kind of thing. And I got past that okay because I kind of watched it beforehand. Usually if I watch something and see it happen beforehand, I know when it's coming and it doesn't get me as bad. Then I can play it. And my mind doesn't shut down. I don't get mad because I knew that thing was there.
Right.
And also like, what you were saying, like, yeah, it is a cheap trick, and again, just a total turn off. I don't hate them if you've been building towards them for a while. If you can build toward it correctly, and in one of my examples, because I actually have suggestions for people who are like me later on, there's one game that definitely got me a couple times, but it was towards the end, and they built it up so well that I thought it was well done, and I was like, you know what? I've come this far. I'm not mad at you for doing that. Like I was actually okay with it.
Joker at the top of a building that you grappled to, laughing in your face. Not
pissed
okay.
me off so bad. It
and
pissed me off.
That's the weird thing about the Joker too. I have a tattoo of the Joker on my leg, for God's sake. Like I just love comic books and stuff. So I don't know. Like he's not meant to be a jump scare type villain. Like the terror of the Joker is, you're having a good time, everything's perfectly normal, and then that fucking guy walks in the room.
Yeah.
That's the scary part of who he is, because you have no idea what's going to happen. It's like, okay, is he going to buy us all drinks and we're going to have a good time, or is he literally going to beat us all to death? Like, that's the scary part, not him hiding on top of a building, or like him waking up and laughing while his body's being incinerated. Somehow that happens in Arkham Knight, I think.
Yeah, because that's the thing. They're playing with the fact that like Batman is hallucinating him the whole time, so they really take liberties with how he can appear and stuff like that.
Which is, I guess, kind of interesting. Yeah, because then it does. Then the rules can be stripped away. But I'm with you on it's a little unfair to do that.
If you're not expecting it from that series, Yeah,
that was basically it.
but you've definitely let slip over the last few episodes, and you mentioned it here, that you're not like completely against horror, and you do like being creeped out, and there are certain types of horror that you like.
Right.
And so I thought it would be fun to try to kind of narrow in on that stuff and give suggestions and stuff like that. Now it's interesting that you said that you can't play first person, because one of the first games that popped into my head is a first person game. And the reason that I picked it is because I thought being in first person kind of gives you more agency. And also, I don't recall this doing a lot of jump scares so much as it is like generally setting a creepy kind of oppressive vibe.
Okay.
But it's also not even a monster game, and it's Condemned Criminal Origins, which was like back at the beginning of the Xbox 360 era.
Yes.
That game was awesome.
Yeah, it's a first-person game. You're playing a detective, so there's like some cool, like, before Arkham Asylum style, like detective vision-y type like puzzles. And it's kind of weird to think about, but it's like your only enemies are hobos, really, and then there's some cultists later on. Like, it's just like, it's weird that like you're going into these areas and you just kind of are disturbing the homeless people, but I think there actually is like a narrative reason why they're all kind of crazed and coming after you, but
it has a lot to do with the cult, and also part of the idea is like there's not a lot of ammo in that game. Ammo's really hard to find, and you have to conserve it.
Yeah, so you're picking up like pieces of pipe or like 2x4s and using that, and like the combat is very immediate and visceral, which is like a played out word with video game description, but very apt in this.
There's no better word.
Better word and like Rob said, it's like, you might get a pistol and then fire 5 shots and then have to flip the pistol around and like use it as a bludgeoning weapon. Right. That's all you've got. Right. But I remember, like, I have real fond memories of that game, and like I definitely scared me, but I don't recall it being very much with the jump scares so much as like, oh, now I'm in this like dilapidated mall after hours, and there's all of these mannequins that keep moving after
I was just going to say, I remember there being a mannequin thing that I think I've seen before. And I remember that being like, I'm good. I don't know. Yeah, the first person thing I think is what would turn me off the most about it. Because again, I can't separate myself from it, because now I'm like, no, this is happening to me. So it kind of freaks me out a little bit more. Like I've said this before, I can't even I can usually watch a horror game because like, if I feel like a jump scare is coming, I can kind of like turn away or whatever, and it's fine. I can't like even watch like PT or like Resident Evil 7 or anything like that. I just can't. Like, as soon as the view kicks on, I'm like, oh no, this is happening to me now. That's what my brain says somehow. Yeah. Like I'm pretty good at like immersing myself in things. At least that's just how my brain operates a lot of the times, which it may be a reason why jump scares actually anger me, because for that reason, because I'm so immersed in whatever I'm playing. But when it's in third person and I can see the character, it's happening to them and not me. At least that's how my brain perceives it. Right. So I don't know.
Yeah. So that might be a swing and a miss. I mean, I think it might be worth like looking at again, like maybe just like check out a YouTube video. Although I was trying to find footage of it before this episode just to like refresh my memory, and I could not find one where it did not have an obnoxious ass YouTuber just with that over the top YouTube voice.
What's up, everybody?
Always type in, if you're looking for just a straight up playthrough, always type in no commentary, and usually it will come. That is the trick I've found, because I don't like the YouTube people either. There's a few that here and there that I like, but the YouTube people. The YouTube people.
I got a horror story brewing from that. The YouTube people. I like that. I'm gonna write that down. Shit. Can I make a recommendation?
Absolutely. Yeah, we're just gonna be like free form on this on this section.
So I have two ways I can go. I have I don't know if this is too many. 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 5 games.
Okay.
I'm gonna I'll go with probably the most obvious ones on this list, and Julian knows them. You mentioned how you like or you enjoy Japanese horror, and
yes.
As do I. I adore Japanese horror, like Uzumaki. I don't know if you've ever seen Uzumaki.
He the one that made the one about the holes. That one is fantastic.
That one is. I know what you're talking about.
Ito?
Yeah.
Juno Ito or something like that.
It's something fault line, and I can't remember what it's called now. That's going to drive me nuts. But that is a really fantastic one.
If you want to read a great manga, they actually just did it as an animated series on Adult Swim. I think it started this month, actually. There's a phenomenal live-action movie. It's called Uzumaki. It means spiral.
Okay.
I just actually found it in my DVD collection at my mother's house. I was going through. I was like, yeah, here we go. So I'm going to make my girlfriend watch that. But Uzumaki's amazing. Anyway, so 2 games that are very Japanese horror. They were made by a Japanese company who has no idea what to do with the property. Silent Hills 2 and 4. I would say they don't rely on jump scares at all, especially Silent Hill 2. Silent Hill 4, however, is very much so more Japanese. If you haven't played it, I don't know if you have. Have you played either one of them?
I've definitely watched a playthrough of the second one a few times because I find that game, like you said, just kind of a masterpiece and just absolutely fascinating at all accounts. I've never played it myself, but that is one I probably could play because you're right. It doesn't really rely on the jump scare thing. It's more of an atmosphere, bad feeling in the pit of your stomach kind of fear. And I really like that about it. So
I just started another playthrough of Silent Hill 2. This would be my 8th or 9th time playing through it. I just started another one this month, sort of to get ready for this show, but also I was like, I love this game. It's like one of my 5 favorite games of all time. But even the remastered version, which gets a bad rap, I don't really care. Like the story,
I thought it was fine.
It's totally fine. Whatever. All the Silent Hill nerds on Reddit need to relax. But Silent Hill 4, while playing the Silent Hill 2, I was like, man, I really wish there was a Silent Hill 4 HD remaster because I remember loving Silent Hill 4 when it came out, and I remember appreciating how different it was from the core series, but also I really connected to how Japanese it was, how a lot of the spirits in the game are very much so rooted in Japanese culture and folklore, as well as a lot of the ideas going on with the 21 Sacraments is very much connected to Japanese historical culture, but also the notion of abandonment and parents and the idea of a living space essentially being a womb or a place of nurturing for a character. So a lot of things like that, I was like, I think he might like Silent Hill 4. So if you found a playthrough of Silent Hill 2 to watch, and you can find one of Silent Hill 4, I'd recommend it. It has some negatives to it. It didn't do as well, and it was sort of the beginning of the end for Team Silent, but it doesn't change the fact that it's great.
Right. I will definitely have to check that out.
I actually think watching watching a playthrough might actually even be better, because my problem with Silent Hill 4 was just that eventually, like, game mechanics wise, having enemies that you literally can't kill. It's a cool concept. But then for me, it's like I got to a fail state where literally I had no health items and I was at a save point, or like where I literally couldn't progress because I couldn't heal myself and I had like a sliver of health left and was like, okay, I'm dead, like every time. But yeah, like Rob said, it wasn't originally a Silent Hill game to begin with, and it definitely shows because it is way more Japanese horror than the previous 3 games.
That's apparently not true.
Really?
According to Akira Yamaoka, he's like, no, this started beginning to end. This was always going to be a Silent Hill game. I just read about this, and then I watched a documentary about it on YouTube. He was like, no. He's like, we had an alternate Silent Hill 3. That's the scariest game we've ever made that Konami wouldn't let us make. But he's like no, but he's like the room was always going to be the story for Silent Hill 4. And what I think is really fascinating too is you go from Silent Hill 1 is obviously an ambitious thing and it was great,
Right.
whatever. Silent Hill 2, magnifique, masterpiece in every way. A lot of people feel like Silent Hill 3 is as well. Personally, I think Silent Hill 3 was going in a way different direction. That sounds way more interesting, but they never confirmed it. But Silent Hill 3 is also fine. I think Silent Hill 4 is a very almost like love letter, mumblecore version of Silent Hill that I think really lets people in. Other than exactly what Julian said, the difficulty and unkillable, some of the enemies being unkillable, that really sucks.
Yeah, that sounds bad.
It's brutal, and you get like a mystical sword to like pin them down, but the second you take that sword out, they get right back up.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's brutal. But other than that, I really feel like Silent Hill 4 is a very approachable game. And if you're going to watch it, even better. It would be a really fantastic viewing experience.
That sounds like something I will be into. I will definitely find a playthrough of that.
Yeah, and I love, it's called Silent Hill 4 The Room. And like Rob was saying, like, that concept of this is your sanctuary, right? That like you always come back to your room, to your apartment, and that's the safe space until it stops being the safe space, like as the game progresses. And like
interesting.
And like also like kind of spying on your neighbor through like a crack in the wall and seeing what happens to her through the game. There's some neat stuff in that game.
That is pretty cool. Okay, yeah. All right.
Oh my god, it's something special.
I might actually try to play it again. I wonder if there's a difficulty setting. There should be. I might just like drop it on a lower difficulty and try to. Because I never did get to see the ending.
There's four different ones. I only ever got the best one, which I didn't like, and the worst one, which I sort of liked. But I watched two of the middle endings, and I was like, I'd actually be really happy with either one of those two, but they're not considered the best for some reason. The best one is like very odd for a Silent Hill game. It's very like, everything's great. Yeah,
that doesn't sound right. Yeah.
No. And even Silent Hill 2's best ending is sad in a way, but it makes sense. So, I hope you find a video and you get to enjoy it.
Yeah, for sure. I've watched, I believe, a little bit of Silent Hill 1. I never could make it all the way through because it kind of ages a little bit poorly, like just watching it.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, Silent Hill 2 holds up in almost every way, I think. And 3, I've watched an entire playthrough of 3, but I didn't get too into it. And I don't know why. I feel like it definitely harkens back to 1, and the people I was watching play through it were explaining where the connections were. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, okay, all right. And I was like, I don't really like when they go back to this cultist thing. I kind of don't think it works very well. I really like them just going into this is this person's own personal struggle type of thing, and I really think that's cool.
I was going to say that's definitely the worst aspect of Silent Hill is the cult bullshit.
Yeah.
Like all that stuff, take that shit right out. Silent Hill 4 does have some, and Julian, maybe it's more in the, because my memory is a little foggy, but like maybe Silent Hill 4 has more than I'm remembering, but Silent Hill 4 only touches on the cult, I think, very briefly and like in very sparing doses.
Yeah, I want to say that the only thing with that is that I think there's a character who might be related to the like part of the cult or something like that, but it's definitely not the overarching part of that story. Okay. And
it's more like a haunted house story.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, or a haunted location too, because he keeps traveling to different places from the portal in his room, but. And like Silent Hill 3 is actually my favorite one, but I will say that that's really due in part to the character, because it was like the first horror game that I can remember where the character actually seemed to be reacting realistically to the shit that was going down.
Yeah, that does make sense. Yeah,
yeah. So many of those earlier horror games, it's like you see the most fucked up stuff, and the character is just like. Don't even pay attention. Don't even comment. Right?
Yeah.
You inspect something, it's just like, oh yeah, there's blood and viscera everywhere. So that's it.
She feels like a real teenager too.
Right.
Yeah. I love at the beginning of the game when the detective guy is like watching her and she gets off the phone and she kind of gives him this like, what are you looking at?
Yeah.
It's like a very like human, like very real emotion that, especially back in, 2002 2 or 3 or whenever that game came out.
Yeah.
Like, very good, you know.
Yeah.
And you forget that Silent Hill 3 and 4 were only a year apart. Like,
Yeah.
I completely forgot that. And
I didn't remember that either.
It's crazy that was the case. But, like, in my opinion, 2 great games back to back. Like, that's... but, okay, Konami, do what you got to do. Shut them down, I guess. And then make a pachinko machine out of the
I was going to
IP.
say, there is a new Silent Hill. It's a pachinko machine, but yeah. I mean, yeah.
Continuing with the Japanese horror, like I was gonna kind of have this as my Hail Mary, but I think it's a good place to slot it in. This shouldn't be a surprise to you, Justin, because I've talked about it a lot.
Right.
But this is one that I think you should actually purchase and play.
Okay.
Just because, like, and again, you know, we're definitely still getting to know each other. Like, it's a process, and but from the games that you like and the type of horror that you seem to gravitate towards, you gots to play Corpse Party.
One of our listeners suggests this later, and I have to say that it sounds right up my alley. I'm not gonna lie. This is like definitely something I should definitely check out. Is it on like Vita by chance?
It's on a bunch of stuff. It's on Vita, it's on 3DS, it's on PC.
It's on Steam, I think, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to say there may be a Switch version, but don't quote me on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, and you know, so it's straight up Japanese horror as fuck, you know, right down to like, you know, like spectral elementary school kids that haunt you, you know, and you're basically, you play a bunch of characters and they're all high school kids that end up waking up in this elementary school that I think if memory serves, like it burned to the ground like 30 years ago or something like that, but they're in it. And they're trying to unravel, you know, in true Japanese horror style. They're trying to get to the bottom of what happened at this elementary school. But of course, bad things happen to people. And like, I implore you to play it with headphones on, because the audio design is one of the most effective things I've ever. Like, that's the only reason that it's scary at all, is because of the voice acting and the sound effects. I had mentioned when we did that episode where we were talking about turning franchises into dating sims, and I brought up Corpse Party there.
Yes.
and you know, there's
a great idea for a show.
You should go back and listen to that one, Rob.
I'm gonna listen to that.
You're welcome, everyone.
But no, there's a very famous scene where a character hangs himself. But it is, I mean, you hear the sound of that body swinging from the rope. They don't show it. You don't actually see an image of this character, like, you know, hanging from a noose. But it feels way more real and impactful than if they had actually shown it on screen, because they know what they're working with. You know, the original game, I think, was made in RPG Maker. You know, it looks like a 16-bit style game. And then it's visual novel style. So like, then you have like a bunch of like static images of anime high school characters talking to each other with, you know, slight animation when they change facial expressions. But for the most part, very static images, but it does so much with so little. That I can't recommend it enough. And I really do think that, like, if you pick that game up, you're going to come back and be like, holy shit, like, that was one of the best games that I played this year.
I believe it. It sounds fantastic. It sounds a lot like Danganronpa, which I really liked. Danganronpa was kind of similar. It was like, you kind of wake up and it's a whole different thing, but you're kind of unraveling the mystery of what happened and why you're all in this place, and then kids start getting killed, and it's more of a detective thriller kind of thing, but what you're describing reminds me a lot of that. So yeah, this sounds like something I'd be into. I'm down for this.
There's a lot of different endings, and it also it likes fucking with you. Like it'll one of my favorite things that it does, and I don't remember when it happens or which game it happens in, because I've played a couple of them, but it does that thing towards the end of Evangelion. You know, there's that one episode where all of a sudden, like, Shinji wakes up and it's like a dream sequence where it's like your typical, like, day in the life anime where he's late for school and Rei is like, you know, happy-go-lucky and everything. And I think, like, he ends up, like, accidentally grabbing her boob in, like, typical anime style. And it's like, oh, here's what could have happened if their lives weren't just a fucking train wreck.
Yes.
But then quickly it goes away. Like, Corpse Party does stuff like that, where it's like, oh, hey, what if everything was fine and happy and sunshine, and oh, now someone's dead.
This sounds right up my alley. Yeah, that is definitely a great suggestion, and I want to check that out now. Actively want to do it.
Excellent.
Justin, do you have one?
Do you want my suggestions? All right.
Why not?
I can suggest a thing.
Little round robin type.
So like I said, I'm not a big horror guy. But I do have one suggestion. It's a game I played last year, right around the end of the year. And I know I talked about it, I think, on like the Game of the Year thing, but I didn't like get too much into what it was, because we were going through best games, and I think for whatever reason I was just like, I just got to talk about this because it was cool. It's called The Hex, and what it is it's kind of like a point and click adventure type thing, but not really. It goes into like every single genre of video games, and like basically you're in a old motel with all these video game characters, and they're all like one is basically Crash Bandicoot. One is basically like an RPG sorceress girl. There's a guy from like a Fallout game. There's a fighting game guy, and they're all in this thing, and they're all like past their prime, just like in this like little tavern drinking. And like slowly you go into their games, and each one's different, but they all kind of control similar. And slowly things just start going to hell, and like it goes real meta. And it's really cool. And there's a really creepy ass character, and I forget her name now, but I think it's Sato. And she shows up and has that big, way too big for her face smile kind of thing going on.
Yeah.
And
I love that look on a woman.
Oh yeah, who doesn't, right? And it's really good. It goes some places. It's kind of funny. It has a sense of humor about itself. And then it has like this really cool like meta game, or I don't want to say meta game thing, but meta type thing where like they made a separate game on Steam for it that you can go download, and there's a hidden thing in that game that you have to get to unlock another thing in this game. It's weird. Wow. They went deep, and it's really cool. And by the end of it, you may think your computer has a horrible virus on it. Which is cool. It's great. So I recommend that one.
That looks really cool.
That kind of reminds me of like the closing like hour or so of Undertale, which, you know, Rob, I know you're a huge Earthbound fan, and Undertale obviously is, you know, pulling from that well. But then in like the last hour and a half, maybe, like it goes into some real freaky shit with the last boss and stuff like that. It gets horrific is probably a good word for it.
Undertale is one I've always wanted to kind of dig into, but I never got around to it. I haven't spoiled that game for myself, and I really should get around to playing it one of these days. I have it downloaded on something and just never picked it up. Not sure why.
I have it downloaded on something.
Yeah,
it's one of those games where I think the less you know about it, the better, because I think for me, having heard all of the effusive praise for it,
right,
and you know, and I like the Undertale fans definitely do that game a disservice,
right,
because of how rabid they are. And when I finally played it, I was like, yeah, this is okay. You know, like I'm kind of glad that I played it, but I think even when I talked about it on the podcast, I was like, I probably could have just watched this on YouTube and still been fine. You know, like I don't really feel like the actual like gameplay was like something that I had to experience firsthand. Now, Rob, you have recently, I mean, we'll definitely talk about it in Consumption Junction in depth, but you just released a horror novel, which I am thoroughly enjoying, but it definitely had me thinking about one of my favorite horror games, period. And I might be, you know, longtime listeners know what I'm going to say, and Justin probably knows too. Fucking Alan Wake, man. Like, Justin, if you haven't played Alan Wake, you got to play some Alan Wake, especially now that, you know, because this year I played through both Quantum Break and Control, which are Remedy's two games since Alan Wake, and I am now a firm rabid Remedy fan because of what they do with their storytelling. And Alan Wake, it has such great characters and such great writing, and like the way you get into the mind of like this writer who is struggling with his most recent novel and really getting frustrated about it. And then you've got like that really cool like Remedy cheesy FMV stuff. They've got like their little Welcome to Night Springs. It's like the Twilight Zone, and so you'll find TVs that you're watching in the world. So it's not even like it like cuts to like a full screen of it. It's like Alan Wake turns on a TV on a tube on a counter, and then you can kind of zoom in and watch like a scene from Night Springs. And now horror wise, it is, again, I don't remember it doing like jump scare stuff, and if it did, it was probably more like, oh, you heard something loud off to the side when it was quiet, and not necessarily something jumping out at you or anything like that. Yeah. Because you're mainly fighting the darkness, and they're basically the darkness like possesses the people in this town that you're staying in, and so they look like people, but they're kind of like, wrapped in shadow, and so you have to use your flashlight to burn the shadow away, and then, you shoot them with guns, and I feel that, like, there might be, like, something, like, some subtext in there that maybe that's not actually happening. I'm not quite sure. It's been a while since I played it.
I think they kind of lay the groundwork to make you think that he might be going a little crazy, that the pressure on his, like, latest book has pushed him over the edge, and there's something that God, you're the one who told me to play this game, and I did, but it was so long ago. But like,
yeah, we're talking almost a decade now.
Yeah, easily. But there was also, I remember I was playing it during a snowstorm here in New York, and I remember there's a part where he and his wife are in their apartment in New York City in a snowstorm, and I remember thinking, holy shit, I haven't seen snow done this well in a video game in a really long time, and it just had that feeling of like the warm house, the cold outside, the cold windows, and it just, like, you never really see that in a video game. And I remember Alan Wake doing that really, really well, and that game is awesome. Didn't the guy who did Max Payne, didn't he write it, Sam Lake?
He's heavily involved, and I want to say, okay, and so then, like, for listeners who have been playing Control, Dr. Darling, who is like the star of like all of the like FMVs that you see explaining what's going on in the Federal Bureau of Control. Yeah. Also, Rob, he is the actor who played he's one of the merry men in Men in Tights, the youngest one.
Shit.
With the daggers.
Yeah, Red Scarlet. He plays Red Scarlet.
Yeah.
Whatever his name is.
So he's older now, obviously, but he's the voice of Alan Wake. So if you've been playing Control, Dr. Darling, if he sounded familiar, it's because he's also Alan Wake. But fantastic story, and also Rob, sorry, Justin, you're a big music guy, and the way that they use music, I've definitely talked about it many times on the show. Like not just the way that they have like Poets of the Fall music in there and other like licensed music like at the end of the chapters, but then Poets of the Fall does double duty as an in-game band called the Old Gods of Asgard, and their music is like super integral to the plot of the game in a really cool way. And then I do recommend definitely picking up both pieces of DLC that were with it, because the first DLC, it's okay. It's so-so. Okay. Second piece of DLC is one of the coolest, like, things I have seen, like, added onto a game. And considering that there has not been a real sequel, because Alan Wake's New Nightmare is really more of like a weird, like, Elseworld spin-off type thing. It connects, but it doesn't. So with, barring us getting a sequel, which fingers crossed, because they sure are putting a lot of hints in their games lately.
For sure.
I can't recommend it enough. Like, I don't know why I didn't. So I've been having a little trouble like getting into the spirit this year. Like normally, like even back in September, that's when I start like watching horror movies and playing horror games and stuff. And I haven't really started until just a couple weeks ago, or even just a week ago. So I haven't really played much yet. And we'll get into it in Consumption Junction. But I don't know why I didn't just like, because I think Alan Wake is backwards compatible on Xbox One now.
I was going to ask a question about Alan Wake, actually, because if I remember correctly, that got taken down or re-put up or something like that because of the licensed music. Like, they couldn't maintain the license.
Grab a disc.
It's either that or I was wondering if it was on PC because I bet somebody has a mod somewhere that adds all that stuff back in there. PC people are crazy
because that's where I heard that it was getting, or that's where I heard they were taking the music out of it.
Right.
But like, I'm sure that somebody.
I'm sure somebody.
It's on the Xbox.
Modded it back in.
It is on the Xbox.
You can download it again. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just wondering what the music. I mean, obviously, like the Poets of the Fall stuff would still be in there because they're like part of the game. But yeah, like it had like that's I've said it before, but like I got introduced to Poe because of Alan Wake and really loved both of her albums. And there's like a really good Johnny Cash song in there, and I think there's a David Bowie song in there, and yeah.
You should read Poe's brother's masterpiece of a horror book.
I want to read his book because one of her songs actually.
She had a whole concept album that goes with it.
Right. Okay. I didn't know the whole album went with it. I knew the one song, but I definitely want to pick that up.
House of Leaves.
Yes.
That's probably the scariest book I've ever read.
Oh, wow. I didn't even know it was a horror book, so that has me even more intrigued.
Terrifying.
Awesome.
Yeah. So good. It's impossible. It would be totally impossible to make into a movie. There's no way. It's
awesome.
Yeah, it's so good. It's just like how it works. It's almost like how people used to say how Watchmen worked, but like it functions in such a way that it's just so strictly literary and so tactile that to be able to put any of that on screen would just be no way.
Right.
But
right.
That's pretty funny that you mentioned Poe. God damn it, she's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I started looking her up and because I was like, why does she only have 2 albums? And then apparently she's been trapped in like publisher hell for like 15 plus years, where it's like she literally could not make music, and it's like just real shitty contract type stuff. And hopefully she'll be able to come back and do something else, because those 2 albums are. Mwah.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. Good reference, Poe. My God.
She's also in Apocalypse, starring Bruce Willis for PlayStation 1.
Is she really?
Yeah, she's one of the like a supporting character or something like that. I didn't know who she was at the time. I just remember it being a big deal that she was in it.
And isn't that the first video game to drop an F-bomb?
I don't know. The first video game that I remember dropping an F-bomb was Blood Rain for PS2, because I remembered hearing it and being like, whoa! And then I actually saved my game and brought my memory card into work the next day. I was like, guys, you gotta see this.
They drop an F-word. I remember hearing it in Max Payne 2, The Fall of Max Payne. The first time I heard it, I was like, whoa! He said that he would F her. That's wild. But
I remember seeing shit for the first time in Vandal Hearts for PS1. Because that was right before Final Fantasy VII, which also has tons of that word in there.
Final Fantasy VII?
Yeah.
Well, it's since been taken out. Like, if you play any version of Final Fantasy VII that's been re-released, it's not in there anymore. It's really weird.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow. Shit.
But we're not here to talk about Final Fantasy VII, Rob.
Oh, sorry. All right. So I have 2 games on this list that are both first person. I know you said you don't like first person, so I'll do those ones next. I just played through a game called The Park, which it does have, I think, 2 jump scares in it. I played the whole thing over the course of maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours, something like that. And
that's a good length for a horror game.
Yeah, and it worked. Like I said, it's first person, but it does things. It's more about the psychological experience. It reminded me of a lot, and I love this game, and I know a lot of people don't, but I adore it. It reminded me of Dear Esther meets Silent Hill. And I know we keep mentioning Silent Hill. I feel bad, but whatever. At the same time, this game is brilliant. It's dark. It's incredibly dark, especially if you operate under a certain assumption about the lead character that you're playing as. But overall, it's really quite good. I think it's on sale right now on the Xbox. I could be wrong. I know I got it on sale like 2 months ago, and I just only played it now. But it's apparently set in – there was this MMO RPG game called The Secret World that came out like a million years ago. Not a million years ago, but like maybe 8 or 10 years ago. And this game is set in that universe. I had no idea until I went to the wiki for it. And I was like,
that's cool.
Yeah, I was like, that's really neat. So I would recommend The Park. I know it's first person, but however, enjoying the story and enjoying what happens. It's about a woman whose son, I think it takes place in the 80s. It's a woman whose son goes missing in an amusement park as the amusement park is closing down.
Okay.
And she goes into the amusement park to look for him. And of course, this amusement park is not the happy, cheerful place. And
right.
She tells these she has these amazing monologues as you're going through, where she talks about how she met the kid's dad and how she thought things were going to be different and how she thought being a mother would feel different and all these things. It's really, really good. Really good.
That sounds really good. Yeah.
And you wouldn't know by the cover art. The cover art's a little deceiving.
I was going to say, I feel like I've seen this game, or at least the name, and nothing about it appealed to me at all. Because like especially like a lot of like indie or more indie titles, like aren't the best at advertising sometimes. They're kind of bad. And yeah, this one definitely had a lot of that air about it where I was like, yeah, this is probably something that there's nothing really here, but then you play it and it's a lot different. So
the cover art makes it look like a Five Nights at Freddy's clone.
Yeah.
I promise you it is not at all.
Right.
It is light years smarter than anything Five Nights at Freddy's. Even though I know that those games are like mega popular.
Oh yeah.
It's especially, but they're all jump scares. So it's like,
no. Yeah, no.
Hard pass.
Hard pass on those. Yeah.
I've seen gameplay of those games and I don't get it because it's like you're just like looking over here and then looking over there and then like going back and forth and then something jumps out at you and it's like
Yeah.
I don't get the appeal.
They got popular because basically YouTube people,
the
YouTube people, they basically gave reaction videos to them being scared, and and people were like, oh, well, I got to check this out, and then people got real into the lore or whatever, if there is any, I don't know, but yeah, they're not great games at all, and I feel like I think Jim Sterling or something like that, he like recently was like, you know what? I take responsibility for Five Nights at Freddy's because I said that was a cool game. And he's like, I regret it now. I'm sorry. I was like, yeah.
My nephew was one of the characters last year for Halloween. And like, I was like, how do you know this game? He's like, I watch it on my iPad.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, all right. And it doesn't scare you? And he's like, no, it's funny. And I was like, okay. It's like, you're 5 years old.
Two things. One, I'm still surprised that like, it did become the big juggernaut with the kids.
Yeah.
Because I feel like the parents just were not paying attention for that whole thing. But two, you saying that your nephew dressed up last year, because I felt that like it felt like it went off a cliff as far as popularity, where it was like the shit, and then all of a sudden like it vanished and it was all Fortnite and Roblox. And I was like, okay, I guess Five Nights is gone, but I guess not.
I saw a lot of kids last year dressed as those. I don't know the characters' names. I know the one that I think he was Foxy. I think that's what he said the character's name was, but it has like a hook for a hand or something. I don't know. But that's the one he was. I don't know if they all have names. I'm sure they do. But like, I saw a ton of them on Halloween at my parents' house because I love going there, but like, and handing out the candy to the children's. But there was a ton of Five Nights at Freddy's people, and I could not believe it, but I've never played one. I'm never going to play one. Again, it's all jump scares, so like it had no value to me whatsoever.
Yeah. What was that other one you had, Rob? I'm really curious.
So this one is an odd pick, because even though it is first person, there aren't really any jump scares, and it's more about the intensity of the situation and the struggle to survive. It's a really weird pick, because not much of it takes place at night or in a spooky area at all, but Far Cry 3.
Okay.
Far Cry 3, to me, is like the ultimate exploration of what happens when one goes native. And I've done a lot of research into the idea of, going native and what that means for when someone from one culture just completely, their psyche just collapses and breaks down and they go fully into the culture that they are now in. And Far Cry 3, to me, felt like that. So it's terrifying in the sense that this person who's a perfectly normal dude bro from America finds himself in the South Pacific, and all of a sudden he's shirtless, he's covered in tattoos, he's killing with no problem. It's like the slow descent into total madness, and coming to the point where you could choose one of the two endings or whatever. I chose the quote unquote bad ending the first time because in my head, in my playthrough, Jason, I think his name is Jason, that was the natural progression. This is a guy who found himself loving killing people, found himself very good at killing people, and thus all connection to his previous life was gone. So for me, the bad ending is the true ending, and it's the full going native experience. And that's why I say Far Cry 3 is a horror game, because it's about an individual losing themselves to their circumstances and losing themselves to the situation and the world that they find themselves in. And that's a terrifying concept.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting take on that game. That is one I could play because I don't think it'd be like too jump scary or anything, and I don't mind a first person shooter every now and then. It's not my like preferred genre by any stretch, but I could definitely see myself playing that. And I've heard a lot of good things about it, especially that one.
It's the best of them.
That's the one to play.
Yeah.
Far Cry 5 was awful. So
I've heard nothing good about it. So
yeah.
Now, Rob, you bringing that one up, this actually popped in my head the other day, but I almost forgot about it. But I'm glad that you did that off the wall pick, because I'm glad that we can talk about this, because we have not been able to talk about it since I played it. Spec Ops: The Line. I would definitely put in here, because like Far Cry 3, what Rob was saying is like, it really is like this slow descent into madness of your main character, but also just his squad, as things go from bad to worse to the bleakest of blacks.
Yep.
And, you know, like I remember like Rob was writing for Chud when that game came out, and he gave it like 5 stars. It was like his game of the year.
Right.
I didn't get a chance to play it until after he left the show, but then I finally played it. I was like, okay, yeah, this is something special.
Right.
I'm glad you liked it.
Oh man, it's so good. Like, that's one that I wish that would get a remaster or a re-release on current systems, so more people can play it. My only complaint about it is that I think that, and I think this was probably the publisher like kind of reining them in a little bit, I wish that they had been able to spend more time and more subtly ramping up to the crazy, because it's sort of like you go up to a certain point and then all of a sudden there's almost like a line of demarcation where it's like, okay, now things are shit, and the characters are acting differently, where I think if they had a little bit more time to spread that out, because that game's ahead of its time. Like, they could, like, tons of games like that come out now where it's like, oh, let's look at the more psychological aspects of war and stuff like that. But back in 2011, 2012, like, there was like, oh, how did they even make this game? Like, this is like, how did they get this past the publisher? Because it didn't even have a multiplayer mode. It was just like a single player 7-8 hour experience, and it is a phenomenal 7 or 8 hour single player experience.
And then they spent the money on the multiplayer mode that they added to it, instead of doing what you said they should have done, is slow down the single player and just add a few more layers to it, or levels rather, and just slow it down a little bit. But instead they did like the multiplayer, and it's like,
oh, did they add a multiplayer too?
There's a multiplayer.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And you know what? I hate to say this, it's really not terrible. Like, the multiplayer is not bad.
It plays well. It's a good playing game.
Yeah, but I could not agree with you more that if they slowed it down a touch, it would still be a masterpiece. Then that's why, like, after that game came out, there was not the same developer or anything, but they wanted to do that game about the battle for Fallujah.
Yeah, that one was real controversial, and it got canned.
I'm dying for that game. A project I would love to do one day is talk to the people who worked on that game and find out, like, hey, like, what happened, and like, what were you guys going to do with this? Like, I think that's an incredible project, because there's a guy who did a book about Spec Ops: The Line. I think it's called Killing is Harmless, and I remember reading it, and it was good, but the writer is very like hipster-y. He's a games journalist, and I don't remember who he is, but the book wasn't quite what I was hoping it would be. But I thought the idea of doing that with 6 Days in Fallujah would be unbelievable, because I've actually talked to veterans who were in Fallujah for those 6 days,
right?
Friends of friends, and the shit that I have heard about is unbelievable. And I think translating the reality to a video game experience would be the ultimate nightmare for people. Horrifying stuff, like I'm talking like horror movie stuff happening there. So there's a lot of interesting things that could have been done with that in the wake of something like Spec Ops: The Line. If Spec Ops: The Line had made more money, maybe 6 Days in Fallujah would have happened.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and it's so funny because I really do think that Spec Ops: The Line, if it came out now, would be a much more successful endeavor. Because I think that the gaming public has matured a lot and seeks out stuff like that, but also, hey, like single player experiences are like really popular right now, and people are. I mean, you've got people that are playing the Fortnites and the Apex Legends and stuff like that, but there is a lot of people, very, very vocal, very, excited group of people that are like, no, give us our single player story based narratives. And, there's been a lot of great ones in the last like 2 or 3 years. And
right.
Yeah.
We're in a nice renaissance of single player experiences right now.
Thank God.
When I'm not playing like my one online shooter that I love, I'm playing like Stardew Valley, or I'm like, I'm playing The Sims.
That's
like
what I do.
Yeah,
I love The Sims.
I say to my girlfriend all the time, I'm like, I'm gonna go be a farm boy for a few hours, and like she just looks over and I'm planting, daisies, and I'm like, just doing the whole thing. Like, it's just so much better than just like, oh, it's time to go play, Battlefield again. And like my friend will text me to play Battlefield. I'm like, okay, fine, but that's not the shooter I was referencing. But every once in a while.
Oh, I feel your stress.
You have another one, Julian, for him?
I do. This is probably my last one, unless something just like spurs to mind like Spec Ops did. But and this might be a suggestion for you too, Rob, because I don't know if you've played this one, but if you haven't, you need to. The Evil Within 2. Now, Justin, I know that you played Resident Evil 4. Mm-hmm. So if you could handle Resident Evil 4, you can handle Evil Within 2, because gameplay-wise, like mechanics-wise, very similar types of games.
The only part of that game I would have trouble with, I have watched a good chunk of that game. The only part I can think of that I know is going to be a problem for me is when you go into the sewers and it's first person. That part creeps me out a little bit. It's in there in Evil Within 2. I'm pretty sure that's there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't remember that, but yeah, I mean, and again, like, I mean, mechanics wise, like, it's great, it's got like the Resident Evil 4 shooting, it's got the cool, like, crafting mechanic and the way you upgrade your weapons, and it's got the really fun, like, the stealth in that game is actually really good.
Right.
And I love the fact that it's open world, but it really feels like if you seek out, if you want to, like, spend the time to explore the world, you're rewarded in terms of extra story content, like some really good like side missions, and then of course scrounging the environment for like crafting materials and ammo and stuff like that, because it's the type of game where it's like it's feast or famine, where it's like, oh, I'm loaded for bear, I've got like full health and like healing items, and all my weapons are flush, and then like half an hour later it's like, I'm just limping by with like 50% health, and I've got like 3 bullets left in my gun, and I don't know what's going to happen to me. But again, like just like Alan Wake, I'm recommending it to you for the story. The story is amazing, and you don't have to have played the first game. I didn't play the first game.
I've watched the first game a few times. I watched people play through that one a few times.
Okay, then you'll be fine. Yeah, exactly. I definitely was able to pick up the things that I needed to know.
Right.
But definitely seeing kind of the character really dealing with like post-traumatic stress from the first game, and trying to like delve into that while also trying to save his daughter from because basically the whole game takes place inside of like a virtual reality construct that has gone amok, and it's really cool. It's got one of the best like last boss sequences I've played in a game, just as far as like not so much as far as the way it plays, as much as what it means in the game. Yeah, it's just a really cool game, and I really hope they get to make a third one. Obviously, is it Tango Gameworks?
I think so. Yeah, I believe it was Tango.
Mikami's team.
Yeah.
They're working on that new game, that Ghost something Tokyo.
Yeah, that's the one Ikumi Nakamura was the presenter for, and now she left there, which is really weird, but okay. Yeah. Which kind of makes me worried about that.
Take E3 by storm, and then get us all excited for this new, fresh take on Japanese game development.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah, I was like, all right, well, I guess that's that.
Yeah.
I heard the villain in The Evil Within 2 is spectacular. He's like a photographer or something like that.
Yeah. He is phenomenal. He's not like the main villain, but he is. Yeah. He's the main villain for enough of the game.
Right. Okay.
And even past that, like it definitely goes places. And
that's cool.
Yeah, Rob, you will love that game.
Yeah. A friend of mine loved the first one, and he's like, "Oh, I just bought the second one. I can't wait to play it." And he played it, and he was like, "I like the second one better than the first one." And he said I should give it a try. I never picked it up. I should pick it up. It's got to be cheap now, right?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, it's a couple years old at this point.
Okay.
So.
That's cool.
Yeah, from what I've watched of it, it looked really, really cool. And like, I remember just the opening of it, like there's just this guy frozen in time of him getting killed, and you're like walking around it like it's a crime scene and looking at it. That shit's really cool. Like, yeah. So, well, I guess I got one last weird suggestion to people who are like me out there. And we'll see how it goes over. So this is a really, really obscure thing that is not out in America. But well, hear me out here, because apparently it's getting translated and is coming here, and I want people to kind of like be on the lookout for it. So it's got a real weird name, and bear with me on this one. It's called Kimi to Kanojo to Kanojo no Koi. Yes, but it's shortened to Totino, which is weird. Now in English that translates to the love between you, her, and her. And basically what this game was the first one to do the Doki Doki Literature Club thing. This is where that game got all of that stuff from. Apparently it's a lot better written and a lot more psychological than that game was. So I'm really interested.
And for listeners who don't know, like Doki Doki Literature Club is like billed as a common run-of-the-mill dating sim that very quickly turns into like full-on Japanese psychological horror.
This game was released in 2013 in Japan, so a long time ago, and basically nobody really bought it because they thought that's what it was, to the point where the company had to start going, hey guys, listen, there's actually something else here, and they put up a different preview of it that showed, hey, look, this is eventually what starts to happen. And watching that preview, and I can't understand any of it because it's all in Japanese, but it looks super haunting and cool. So I really want to play that one. So keep an eye out for any of those like weird keywords that I just spewed off there. If it does happen to get translated to Steam, I really hope it does, because it sounds really awesome. And Doki Doki Literature Club has cited that game as its main influence in what it did. So that's the thing I really want to play.
Sounds like the opposite of the problem that Assassin's Creed 1 had, where they like we're way too open about the fact that, hey, this actually takes place in modern day and there's all this weird computery stuff, because like that would have been like the really neat like swerve on that game, but it was like everybody knew it before it came out. It was like, oh, okay, well, whatever.
It was the bad way to go about that game. Yeah.
I still think of the I know we're gonna get sidetracked. I hate the Assassin's Creed games, but like I still remember that trailer for the first one where they used that Uncle song, Lonely Souls or whatever, and I just remember how haunting and how cool that was. And then when I played the actual game, I was like, yeah, this shit gets old after about a half hour.
Yeah, it gets real old pretty quick. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie.
Even the pirate one gets old. But I have one more. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So this one is a side-scrolling platformer. I played through it fairly recently, and I loved every second of it. The narrative kept me hooked. There's zero jump scares, but it feels a lot like a Outer Limits episode, if you know the Outer Limits show, or even I guess like Twilight Zone, Black Mirror. There you go. Everybody loves Black Mirror, right? What if technology was bad? Okay, great, cool. So this game, it's called Oxenfree.
Yes.
Have you played it, Justin? Have you played Oxenfree?
I have heard Julian talk about it, and it is something that I probably should try at some point.
But before you go further, Rob, I just have to say that I randomly decided to play this game at like 12:02 a.m., and I didn't know anything about it, and I got like 30 minutes into it. I was like, oh, I didn't know this is what this game was, and then I could not stop, and I beat it at like 3:30 in the morning.
Yeah. But it's about a group of friends. I'm sure Julian's told you, but it's about a group of friends who go to an island that was very special to, I guess, a couple of them when they were younger. After the two of the kids have tragedy in their pasts, and they're sort of brother and sister, stepbrother and sister, but they also kind of dig each other a little bit, depending on your play style. Which is a little creepy. And then there's like the bitch character who she's very attractive, but she's very nasty. And there's like the nerdy girl, and there's like the nerdy guy. It's just a lot of fun. It plays with these tropes that we always see in horror movies and stuff like that. But it does them in a way that feels very real and very honest. And the way you play, if you don't play with your gut, you're not playing it correctly. Like, if you're not reacting to these characters as you would in real life, that's the problem. So, like, the way I went through it, I ended up getting, God, I must be a piece of shit. I ended up getting the worst ending for this one, too. Because I completely alienated all of the girl's friends. But I was also trying to do it in a realistic way. I was thinking, like, okay, well, this is how I would probably react in this situation. But Oxenfree does a nice job of putting you in their shoes. And yes, there is some horror elements. There's a lot of darkness to it. There's suicide type stuff in it, so it gets very deep and dark there. But overall, the prevailing concept here is sort of other dimensions and sort of time travel-y horror. So it's really pretty amazing.
Yeah, that sounds really neat.
Oh, yeah.
And without spoiling anything, like there's definitely a moment where you realize what the game is going to be. Well, there's two moments. There's like one like pretty early on, but then like it's also it's kind of like Nier Automata, Justin, where it's like you need to play it more than once.
Okay, all right.
And I don't want to really say more than that because it's definitely something you need to experience firsthand.
Okay.
I will say also, because like I came to that game a little bit late, but their next game is actually coming out soon, and it's called After the After Party, which is where you go.
I've heard of this
hell,
one,
and you're trying to like find Satan to drink him under the table so that you can leave hell.
Yeah, that one sounds
fantastic.
That sounds just right up my alley. I'm so into that game. Yeah, I heard about that one because I was like, oh yeah, okay, the people that made Oxenfree. I've heard about Julian talking about that, and then once they described it, I was like, okay, I'm in. That sounds great.
Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah. Have they done another? No, they only did those two games, right? Or
I think Oxenfree might have been their first thing.
God, can you imagine that being your first game? There's really nowhere to go after that. It's like, okay, well, I mean, granted, it's not perfect. Like, no game is perfect, but like, it's as close. It's as close.
Yeah.
To a first effort as one could get.
And somehow I completely missed it. Like when it was out and people were talking, like I didn't hear people talking about it. I actually, the reason that I came to it was, as listeners know, I love watching the PlayStation Access Friday features with Rob Pearson, and he mentions Oxenfree in a lot of his videos. And I was like, okay, let me go ahead and try this. And then, like I said, Rob is like, I randomly downloaded it like when I should have been going to bed that night. And I was like, I guess I'm not sleeping.
And also talk about a game with a killer soundtrack. My God.
Okay. You're speaking everything my language right now. So okay. I'm in.
Yeah, I think you'll like it. I hope you like it.
I will definitely give that one a shot.
Well, we should go ahead and head over to Pixelbit and start getting listener suggestions. We didn't get a ton for this, but we got some good ones in here. We're going to start with Xrian, who's the first up, who says, Thumper. It's possible he's played this already, but I figured I'd suggest it if not. It's not really a horror game. It's a rhythm game with some freaky aspects. It may not come across as such when you're just playing normally, but in VR, imagine riding that rail dueling with huge monstrosities in a struggle for your life. There's someone later on who mentions VR also, Justin. Well, actually, I don't know if you can do the VR right now. I think you're gonna have to wait until after you get your eyes fixed.
Yeah, VR is a bit tough. I couldn't do that, but I could probably play that game without it. I think you can play that one without it. I don't see why you couldn't. Maybe.
I think you can play it regular, but it's intended to be a VR.
Okay, yeah, that might be tough. I've definitely seen it before, and it always kind of looked interesting. I'm not 100% sure. I know I've watched somebody play through it, and not the whole thing, obviously, but just like kind of give like a quick look type thing. And like, oh yeah, this is this game. It looked like okay, but like there might be a lot more going on than what meets the eye on it. So yeah.
Yeah.
Also, real quick, the same person also chimed in on Twitter. I'm just gonna count. Yeah, okay. I'm gonna count this as the so Extrian. I don't know if he wants me to give out his Twitter handle, so I won't do it. But he also said, "Damn, I wanted to add one more game to the stage select, but couldn't remember the name. Typing of the Dead. Have you tried that? Pretty fun game if you want to practice typing." And I have not tried Typing of the Dead. It's just House of the Dead with typing, I assume. And
yeah, I think, okay,
for the Dreamcast, House of the Dead 2.
Yeah.
Well, Typing of the Dead didn't actually come out here, if memory serves.
Yeah, it did.
I want to say that was...
I was going to say, yeah, it did. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it did. Yeah.
Most definitely. Okay.
Yeah, you can definitely buy it on
The keyboard definitely came out because they brought out the keyboard for Phantasy Star Online.
That's right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. House of the Dead is... Actually, House of the Dead Overkill for the Wii is phenomenal.
That's what I hear.
Yeah, because it's like a grindhouse movie.
Yeah.
With but a light gun game. That one's pretty good.
I loved House of the Dead too. I used to play that with my dad and my sister all the time. We had the light guns for the Dreamcast and just went nuts with that. It was so great. But I wanted to play Overkill. I think I owned Overkill. I never played it.
Yeah, it was really good. And then also I can't mention House of the Dead 2 without talking about House of the Dead 2 kid at my store who was like, I think he was like 10 or 11. He was really skinny and very pale. And I got the impression that he was like a homeschool kid who didn't get to leave the house very often just from his demeanor. And he would come in and because, we would you could play games for $1. And, he was allowed to come in and play House of the Dead 2 for 10 minutes, once a week when he would come in. His mom was very strict about that, but he was like, he was the creepiest little kid because he would act out all of the scenes, from House of the Dead 2 as he was playing it. And keep in mind that House of the Dead 2 has some of the worst voice acting of all time.
Suffer like G did. Yeah.
Yes.
Terrible.
Yeah. And so you got this pasty, scrawny kid, just going, suffer like G did. And
I love it.
We're just oh no.
That's amazing.
Oh, why are you here?
That sounds awesome. Yeah. That kid sounds rad as shit. What are you talking about?
So you had to be there, Justin.
Did I had to be there to see how awesome he was? I don't know. Your description's pretty apt.
I could tell how awesome this kid was.
Exactly. That kid was awesome.
Well, now I feel like a piece of shit. Thanks, guys.
So
not even going to tell you about the duck.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Tell us about the duck.
He was just a guy who came in a lot, and he had very duck-like demeanor, and he liked to play role-playing games in the store all the time, and he would just start randomly talking to people who that would come up next to him that were watching him play but weren't engaging, and he would just say, "A lot of people will ask me, how did you get so many items?" Looking back, he probably had some sort of disorder, so now I feel oh yeah, okay, I was a real piece of shit when I worked at Game Fellas, okay?
My God. Harassing people with special needs. My goodness.
I treated him fine.
I'm sure you did. I'm sure you were a very classy person to him.
Justin, dig me out of this hole. Read San Andreas.
Right. San Andreas.
I wanted to read San Andreas.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Go for it.
Is that okay? All right, I'm sorry. I don't mean
absolutely. Go ahead.
Because I have something to follow up with his second.
Okay.
All right, so
absolutely. Go ahead.
San Andreas writes, I'm going to offer a classic, The Seventh Guest by Trilobite. It naturally has some of the hammiest acting you'll ever see, but it was impressive for its time. My parents played it. I kind of dabbled in a few puzzles. I mostly like the spooky, jazzy soundtrack by George Sanger, a.k.a. The Fat Man. I agree with The Seventh Guest. The Seventh Guest actually holds up pretty well.
Yeah?
I would really like to play that. There was a kid who, and maybe San Andreas and I know each other in real life, because there was a kid whose parents played it in front of him, and he would tell me all about this stuff, and it always sounded really fascinating to me. So I always have wanted to try it. I'm guessing like Good Old Games probably has it or something like that. There's probably someplace you can play that. Yeah,
they remastered it like a million times, so I'd be shocked if Steam didn't have it.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, I'll definitely look into that.
But San Andreas also references, I'd also go with Haunting Ground. Its death scenes are very unsettling, and the main character was intentionally designed to make you feel helpless without the dog to protect you.
It's one I do not know anything about.
Haunting Ground was meant to be the spiritual successor to one of my 5 all-time favorite video games, Clock Tower. The original Clock Tower, not the ones on PS2, and anything after Clock Tower 1 on PS1 is garbage. But Haunting Ground was meant to be the spiritual successor to Clock Tower, and it was fine. But you had a dog with you, and I always had like the suspension of disbelief problem where like you would hide from the person stalking you, yet the dog would be running around outside of where you were hiding, and thus how the fuck do they not know that you're there? That kind of thing. So right. I actually started playing the spiritual successor to Haunting Ground, Remothered, which is very terrifying, but almost 90% jump scare.
I think I'm going to pass on that one.
Yes, and I got to be honest with you, as like a horror guy who like, I've got scary shit in my blood, it scares the hell out of me when the jump scare happens, because every time they call them stalkers in the in-game manual or whatever. Whenever a stalker sees you, it first of all, your controller rattles, and it makes the sound of, no exaggeration, a shotgun going off. And at first I thought the character was shooting my character when it happened, because she would stumble and get freaked out, and I'm like, did I just take damage? Like, what just happened here? But it just so happens like he's just locking in on her and coming in to get her. And it's scary, yeah, and the atmosphere's scary, and the music's great, and the acting is great, the graphics are nice for an indie game, but like, it's almost all jump scares. So Haunting Ground is similar to that, and Remothered is obviously the latest iteration in that style of game. So you might want to avoid those.
Well, I will say to listeners who might be wanting to check out Haunting Ground, I always get it confused with Rule of Rose. Haunting Ground is the one that's affordable. You can find it for like $25 to $50. Rule of Rose, I think, goes for like $300-$400. So I just wanted to make sure before like I said, like, you know, like, you can still get Haunting Ground and not break the bank.
Why is Rule of Rose so much more expensive?
It's just one of those really low print run PS2 games. Like, there's definitely a handful of those, and we're getting to that point where, you know, PS2 is starting to become difficult to find. GameCube also is like getting into like really expensive territory for some of the better games. Yeah.
I should have picked up Rule of Rose for $8 when I had the chance, but I didn't know what it was, so I didn't do it. Now I feel bad. Never fails. Up next, we have Transmet 2033. And Transmet says, I don't care how cowardly he is, the evil within is fantastic and should be experienced. And I've watched it before. It's pretty good. It's pretty neat. So, yeah. That's really all I got there, because we kind of talked about this one a lot. So yeah.
Wait, hold on. Wait, did we not get a bookie comment?
We did not get a bookie comment, Julian.
Wow.
It's sad.
What's this guy's problem? First time I'm on the show in a long time. He doesn't comment. What's the problem?
Oh, I wonder if it's because we called him out on that we exposed his Twitter hand. Oh, bookie, I'm sorry. No, please come back. Please.
Maybe he's going to haunt you
apology.
Now. Oh.
Yeah, a formal apology from the Nerds Without Pants podcast. See, that's
not from me. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, we have one last one at Pixelbit from Superstep, aka Joey, who was on last episode, who says
fun.
Eternal Darkness, Luigi's Mansion, and Resident Evil 7 VR in that order. Now, obviously, you know, we have talked at great length about how great Eternal Darkness is. Luigi's Mansion, you know, it's fun. But Justin,
it's a game.
Justin, I think that Superstep is still angry about the Crush 40 beef, and it's trying to murder you.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought when I read this. And in fact, I have written here, you could not have suggested a worse thing for me to try. Fuck you, no way in hell. Yeah, never gonna do that one. But thanks for playing. That's fun. No, Eternal Darkness is one I'll probably never get around to because I think it's hard to find now. Am I right on that? Is it a little tough to get a hold of?
It's a little tough to find, but it is not as expensive as you would think.
Right, but
again, it's going to set you back like 40, maybe $50. So basically, it's just held its value. It hasn't gone up.
Right, and I have to track down like a GameCube, which I have no interest in doing, and a lot of other things. And Luigi's Mansion always kind of and I hate to say this, kind of looks really boring to me, and like I've just never been my thing. I mean, it might be great, and I could be dead wrong, so please don't hate me. I really love the
first game, but I wish that it hadn't become a franchise, in the sense that I don't want him to keep going to spooky places and vacuuming ghosts. I just want other misadventures of Luigi by himself.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Because in the Luigi's Mansion games, he actually has like a personality, which Mario does not, and I like the idea of Luigi being the cowardly, I don't want to be here, brother, but I have to do this thing, as opposed to Mario's gung ho, like let's jump in without even thinking mentality, and I want them to play with that some more.
Can you imagine a Luigi game? He goes on vacation with, I don't know, which one's his girlfriend, Daisy? Daisy.
I think Daisy.
So he goes on vacation with Daisy, right? They go to like the Mushroom Beach Island or some bullshit, and they're hanging out, and all of a sudden, piranhas in the water, and he's got to deal with it. He's got to take care of the piranhas. He's the only quote unquote hero nearby. Boom. There you go.
Yeah.
There's the next Adventures of Luigi game.
I would love something like that. Yeah, just see him get into like crazier situations, and he does not want to be there, and he's complaining the whole time, and he's calling for Mario to come and save him, but Mario's not around.
Mario straight up is like, he goes.
My idea now is that he goes to Australia and wrestles alligators.
Yeah,
there you go.
I would play it.
He could wrestle rocks from Donkey Kong.
Big money, big prizes. I love it.
Oh, hold on, guys. Hold on. I'm sorry. The Smash TV announcer just showed up.
Oh shit.
He has something he needs me to say, so I'm gonna go ahead and say that. And he says, "All right, okay, Mario," in a question mark voice, because my Luigi's Mansion voice is shit.
Yes, friends, that is the secret code phrase for this episode, Mario. Which is obviously a reference to Luigi's Mansion. It's the way that Luigi calls for Mario in the Mansion games, because Luigi's Mansion 3 is one of the games that you can try to win in this month's Great Game Giveaway. It's a choice between that or The Outer Worlds. So be sure to submit that secret code phrase. You can DM it to us at NWPcast, or you can hit us up on Facebook at facebook.com/nerdswithoutpantspodcast. Now, keep in mind, we are going to be recording a day early for the next episode, so you have until 8:30 Central Time on October 29th to get both that secret code phrase and your code phrase from the previous episode in to try and win one of those games. So good luck, and thank you, Smash TV guy.
Mario!
Good luck. You'll need it.
Indeed. Thank you. Now please leave my room. It's very creepy that you're here.
Because he's always so oiled and drippy and just staring. I don't like it.
I don't like it.
God.
It's very unsettling.
I normally got to pay for that sort of thing, so
I know, right?
Now, before we go to Twitter, we have a Facebook comment. I'm not going to do the whole rigmarole because it's from a returning champion, Adam Bradbury. But Adam says, my horror game recommend is Resident Evil 4. I don't like horror games much either, but RE4 is much more action game than horror. It's easy to face the monsters when you can shoot them in the head. And yes, that's a great recommendation. As we said, Justin has actually played that one.
I've actually played that one. It's actually pretty cool. I think it got me like one time, but it was like toward the end. It was what's that guy's name? Oven Man or something like that. That one got me. Yes,
Oven Man.
Yeah,
sure,
Oven Man classic.
Sounds like a Resident Evil character. So
yeah, I think that's what he's known of. He like just kind of bursts out of some like weird oven and he's like on fire or something, and that's all he does. Like he's commonly referred to as Oven Man.
Sounds like a late career Pearl Jam song.
Oh,
man.
It's more Soundgarden than anything, but yeah. But
yeah.
Anyway, over on Twitter we have Red Venom chiming in first. That's what I have anyway, and he is at TheKelly7. He says, I also have the perfect spoopy game for Justin. Spooky's Jump Scare Mansion on Steam.
Is he also trying to murder you?
Yeah, this one, I think I watched like Funhouse play through this game and make fun of it because I don't think it's very good, if I remember correctly. And yeah, I think it's just like weird, like awful 2D, and then just jump scares happen. And I'm good. Thanks, though. Yeah, not my thing.
Next up on Twitter, we have Blaine Faya on Twitter @BlaineFaya, who says, I cannot participate in the stage select this time because I, like Justin, am a complete coward when it comes to scary things. And just to prove that point, the scariest video game I think I've ever played would be BioShock, and the scariest movies I've watched recently were the first 2 Alien movies, and that's as far into that genre as I'm willing to go. So good luck, Justin, with this intervention-y stage select. I am not about the scary media life.
Alien's one of the scariest movies ever made.
Yeah, man.
It's a classic.
Don't be ashamed that that's the scariest movie you've ever seen. When people put together lists of the 5 scariest movies of all time, Alien is typically within the top 3. So don't be ashamed of that. And BioShock is scary as hell.
BioShock is a scary, that's a scary game.
Yeah, I've actually played through BioShock as well, and yeah, it creeped me out too. So, but I got through it. So yeah, you're in the same boat as me, Blaine. But yeah, I respect what you're doing, bud.
I nothing but love for those picks.
Oh, yeah, exactly. You did great. Next up over on Twitter, we have our old friend Xavier Krieger. He is @Cadus Bane. He says, Justin should give a try to Corpse Party. I think I remember him mentioning that he liked Danganronpa, and this has a similar visual novel style with plenty of anime girl fun. Plus, it doesn't rely on jump scares, or at least they are very few. Instead, it's very atmospheric, and it's on 3DS. Curl up in bed with the lights off, headphones attached to listen to the amazing soundtrack, and just get drawn into this creepy but wonderful game. And yep, we talked about Corpse Party, and it does sound fantastic, so I'm into it. Yeah. Excellent.
I hope actually that like next episode or maybe 2 episodes from now, you'll be like, hey, I played that Corpse Party. I really liked it.
I don't know. This is that time of the year where things start popping off and coming out. Like I know next week's gonna be a busy one for me. So, but we'll see. Hopefully, at some point, I'll get around to it.
Yeah. Rolling right along, we have Jeffka on Twitter @Jestoff.
Oh yeah.
Who says, "All right, Justin, some horror games you should play. Call of Cthulhu. Lovecraft is the master of horror in my opinion, and my favorite author. And the game takes a decent swing at it, although it still misses every now and then."
I would posit that you should play The Sinking City. That does Lovecraftian horror and the messages of Lovecraft better than Call of Cthulhu. They're both great. I'm a big Lovecraft guy. I've got a story in my second book coming out, very Lovecrafty. But
nice.
Yeah, the Sinking City. The Sinking City does it plays with the threads a little bit better than Call of Cthulhu. But Call of Cthulhu is quite good. And the original Call of Cthulhu game, Dark Corners of the Earth, that was on the Xbox, was actually really great as well and didn't rely on jump scares, now that I think about it.
The Lovecraftian horror-type games always seem to focus more on that sense of impending dread and less on just like...
Just going to say that, more of an impending dread feeling, which is cool. I like that.
Oh, yeah.
Next up, Jeffka says, Bulb Boy, a cute, scary, and occasionally gross, short little horror story that is surprisingly endearing and has some great music. Also, its art style looks like Courage the Cowardly Dog, which is a huge plus. Never heard of that one? But
I was going to say, I've never heard about that. That sounds interesting. I'll have to look into that, Jeff.
Yeah. Rob, you'll like this one. He says, Clock Tower, classic horror games with great atmosphere, music, and villain, the silly yet creepy Scissor Man.
Terrifying. Scissor Man rules. I love the Scissor Man. I endorse that 1,000,000%. One of my 3 all-time favorite video games. Probably number 2.
Wow.
Number 2.
That's impressive. That's up there.
And last but not least, Jeffka says, Little Nightmares, probably the most terrifying to me due to its very well-made atmosphere. Highly recommended.
Yeah, Little Nightmares is very good. That's a good recommendation.
I was going to say, I've heard of this one, never really looked into it, but I'll have to check it out now that it's recommended to me. So, yeah.
Are those all the recommendations from the listeners?
We have one more.
Oh, I'm sorry.
From actually a listener who has never contributed before, but I have seen you around, Estevan. So why don't you take it away, Justin?
All right, this one comes to us from Estevan Islas, and his Twitter handle is @expired, which is a cool spelling of the word expired. And he says, crawling out from under my rock for my first entry to the show. Sure. Yeah,
no, we got to cut that.
Edit, just bleep it out. It'll be fantastic. Stage select. I am pretty much in the same boat as Justin. Never been a fan of the horror genre. I did, however, work up the courage to face some fears and took a stab playing Dead Space. I definitely didn't play this game at night, nor did I have the game audio very high, because this had some jump scares that got my heart pounding. After a while playing and getting familiar with events happening in the game, it wasn't so bad to play, though. If I can do it, I believe he can too. And I have watched a couple playthroughs of Dead Space and Dead Space 2, so you're probably right. It'd be like in that like RE2 remake thing where I could probably play it now. Like if I really, really got down and dirty and tried to go in and do it, I could do it. I just have to like prepare myself a lot ahead of time and watch like a playthrough so I knew what was coming and all that stuff, so I didn't freak myself out. But maybe that freaked me out more. I don't know. I'm playing mind games with myself already. This sounds really hard. Let's just forget the whole thing. Okay.
Just
well.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was gonna say.
No, go ahead, Rob.
Just don't pay attention to the first letter of each chapter title in Dead Space. In the first Dead Space.
Totally noted.
Oh, now I gotta go and look at that. Now I will say, Esteban, if you did make it through the first Dead Space, please go play Dead Space 2, because that is one of my favorite games from the last generation. It's up there. It's close to the top of the list from last gen for me.
I like all three Dead Space games. Am I wrong in that feel? I even like the third one.
I haven't played 3 yet.
Most people don't like 3 because of the microtransaction atmosphere to it, and that's where it really got panned at. That was at a time where that wasn't so much of a thing. I don't know about now if it holds up or anything, but a lot of people weren't into that whole thing about it. I remember that being the criticism. I've never honestly even played it or watched it, but I know that's a big thing people had against it. So
I played the demo of it, and I didn't like that it had gone like full-on cover-based shooter, at least in the demo that I played, which it was around that time where we'll talk about it in Consumption Junction, but it was as EA was coming off of their really awesome experimental phase, and then was like, no, we need to like make everything the same. Yeah, that's when like Mass Effect 2 started getting meddled with, and Mass Effect 3 like getting multiplayer shoehorned into it, and so on and so forth. But that is it for this stage select. Hopefully, Justin, you've got some good recommendations, and listeners as well.
I do.
There's definitely some stuff that we talked about that I want to check out. But that leaves it to you, Justin, for the next stage select topic. So what do you have for us? One of the final stage selects of the year, I might add.
Oh, really? Wow. Oh, geez. I may have messed up then.
Not the final.
Okay, all right. Just one of the final? All right, thank God. Because I'm going to be in like a weird mood the next stage select, because a certain game franchise that gets released every year is coming out, and there's also a new game that also has some stuff about my stage select that I'm really looking forward to playing. It's going to be a very, very interesting one, so I'm not sure if this will work out. It may be a disaster, and I'm really sorry if it is, but I want people to describe their favorite created characters to me in video games.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and backstory is for bonus points, however you want to do it. If you're one of those people out there that doesn't engage in that aspect of gaming, and I totally understand if you don't, just give me like your favorite default created character. That'd be fun. Or just tell me what you would make or something like that. Make something stupid up. Go nuts. It's kind of open, but like, I really just love created characters, and I love making up stories about characters. It's one of my favorite things in video games, and I'm going to be in that mood. Trust me. So,
I know the two games you're talking about, and I'm going to be playing those too. So, that'll be a lot of fun. So, listeners, definitely get those to us by 8:30 Central Time on October 29th. You can go to you can go to pixelbit.com and comment in the show thread for episode 163. Hit us up on Twitter at NWPcast. DMs are preferred, since, you can tell us longer stories there. Or go to facebook.com/nerdswithoutpants podcast. And if it's the first time you've done that over there, I'll make a big hullabaloo about it, because I like to be extra when I'm editing this show. But that's going to do it for Stage Select. So let's jump on into Consumption Junction. And Rob, it's been a little bit since we've talked and since you've been on the show. What have you been up to in the last 4 years? Tell me everything that's happened to you in the last 4 years.
Everything in 4 years. We got all night. It's fine.
Great. Jesus. I went back to school. I got my master's. I started teaching. That's about 2 years right there. And then I started, just been teaching for the past 2 years as well. So, like, I think the last time I was on here was like right before I think I started my master's, I guess, if it's 2015. Yeah. So, yeah, that would have been right before I started my master's. So, got that thing, thank God. And I student taught, which I loved, and then I started teaching for real, which has been fun. And now I'm sort of playing with the idea of where do I go from there with the teaching. So I might be leaving New York. I might be staying in New York. I don't know. That's why I asked about Ohio. That's why I asked about Texas earlier. But nevertheless, it is an idea to potentially leave. So who knows? But since then, my father passed away in February, and
sorry to hear that.
Thank you. Yeah, you've been indeed lovely, super sweet texting and stuff, and it's very beautiful to hear from you about stuff like that. So I appreciate it. But since then, I wrote a book, which is out now in time for spooky season, spooky times. It is a book of short horror fiction that you were reading. So I'm like,
I am.
I'm like, I get weirded out when people tell me they're reading it or they read it or whatever, and like I'm like, oh, that's right. It's a thing that exists. Like, yeah, people are gonna read it. So it's like weird to hear. A friend of mine asked me the other day. He was like, hey, did you realize like you wrote a book? Like that was just his question. We were hanging out at his house, him and his girlfriend, and I was like, no, it doesn't feel like that. It hasn't hit me yet. And he's like, it's kind of cool, man. And I was like, yeah.
Sounds like my reaction would be exactly, yeah.
Yeah, it's weird to think about. Like it was a lot of work, but like it came from like a lot of emotion in me, and so there was a lot of it in there. And these are stories that so a couple I had kicking around, but most of them, I would say like 90% of them, came after my dad passed away. So it almost like that heartbreak and the concept of looking at one's own mortality and stuff like that really opened the floodgates. So that it all kind of came out.
As someone who has also lost a parent and has not been handling it, I could tell you were definitely working through some stuff, and I appreciate that as I'm reading it. As some, because I have not worked through it personally. And yeah, it's like I'm about halfway through it, and I'm really loving it. I like that, like some of the stories are like, pretty chunky as far as, and then there's like one of my favorite ones so far, I think is like 4 pages. It's the one about the ghosts in Japan.
Yeah.
I love that one. That was really good. and honestly, like Rob, just to, if you want to chase the money, your first story in that book has enough lore in it to where you can franchise that shit and get yourself your movie deal. Cause it's got it. I was like, okay, yeah, I can totally see this just being blown out into a whole like franchise, like full on novelization, like trilogy type thing. I was very impressed with like a very good opening salvo in a short story compilation.
Oh, thanks, man. That's awesome. The book almost didn't open with that one. But I had gotten feedback from a writer, a horror writer that I really admire, and he had looked at about 70% of the stories that were in there, and he was like, you need to open with this one. He's like, this is the one you need to open with. And I was like, really? I was like, open with the novella? And he was like, oh yeah. So I'm glad. I'm glad you liked that one. That one was...
Yeah, I love that one.
I wrote that over the course of 3 days. I was puppy sitting at my friend's house, which I describe in the story. Like, my friend does have a mansion like that. Like, it's like, it's crazy, but it's like, it's here on Long Island. And I was there for 6 days. I was staying there 6 days by myself. My girlfriend couldn't stay with me. She stayed with me one night. And it was the night of the Game of Thrones episode, the one with the big battle of Winterfell. That's the night that she stayed over, because we watched it on my friend's like enormous 90-inch TV because he's super rich. But anyway, that's the only night. And then all the other days that I was there, I wrote that, and I wrote like 3 other stories while there. I was just like super inspired by the area and stuff, and it all kind of came out of that. So I'm glad you liked it. I had a hard time, like, because I had more that I wanted to put in there, but like at a certain point, like, I was thinking, and I'm not like, I love, obviously everybody loves Stephen King, right? So like, I was thinking of his book where he talks about kill your darlings, and like, so I was taking things out and killing my darlings and taking out things that I really like that have found their way into other stories that for the second book that I'm working on.
Excellent. And I'm being a terrible host. We should definitely say the title of the book, if you don't mind, so people can check it out.
It's called People, a horror anthology about love, lost life, and things that go bump in the night.
Yeah. And I do recommend it. Like I was telling a friend, like, you know, I'm glad that I'm thoroughly enjoying it so that I can actually, because I was going to talk about it anyway, but I'm glad that I can just wholeheartedly and very honestly say, like, I'm really loving the book, and it's very well written, and it goes to some very good, deep places, and also just has a lot of really cool ideas that kind of turn, like, horror, but also just kind of like horror adjacent things kind of on their side just a little bit in really fun ways. Which, and I'll talk about that a little bit later, as far as like, I like when people can take established horror tropes and just turn them slightly this way, and then it feels like a completely new and fresh thing where you're like, oh, I've seen this a million times. Like, oh wait, no, I haven't. This is new. This is good. I like it.
Thanks, man. I want to quote you on that. Shit. Like, oh my God.
You can put it on the back. It's like, some asshole who does a podcast that like 300 people listen to.
My God. That's really sweet, man. Thank you. I'm glad you like it. Like, and you know, when we were talking about during stage select, you know, like I mentioned, I'm not like a gore guy. Like, there's one story in there that has some gore in it, but like, I don't know, like I just wanted to kind of talk about emotions and feelings and reactions. Like, that was the idea, and that's like why I called the book People, because it's really just about the people in the book. It's not about like the vampires or I mean, if there are any vampires in it, but like, and you know, it's not about the creatures, and it's not about that. It's about like the idea of who these people are and how they kind of deal with this stuff. Like, I think of a lot like the Twilight Zone. All the best Twilight Zone episodes are just about normal people reacting to crazy shit, and that's
well. And I would say that like the best horror movies are the ones that take the time to let you get invested in the characters and get to know them before the weird stuff starts happening.
Yeah.
You know, that's why I don't like torture porn and I don't like slasher flicks, because it's really just about like, let's see how inventive we can get with like killing these people, and it's like, okay, yeah, whatever. Like, I want to, you know, get to know them a little bit better. Before that, that's why like 1408 is one of my favorite ones in the last like 15 years or so, because you really get to know John Cusack's character before things get weird.
Oh yeah,
and it makes all the difference.
And it's funny you say that about the slasher film thing, because like, other than like Halloween, or maybe even Halloween and Black Christmas, maybe the only two that I can think of that really do what you say and take the time to really build and make you care about the people before they sign up for wholesale slaughter. Like, and I guess maybe Texas Chainsaw too, but not really. Maybe a little bit less than that one. But I was thinking about that as well, and connecting it to video games. I've had more character development playing the Friday the 13th game and understanding and really caring about those characters more than I ever did any of the characters in the movie that these characters are based on.
Interesting.
Like, which is strange, because like, so a friend of mine and I used to play Friday the 13th, the game, religiously before all the crazy stuff happened with the servers and the drama and blah, blah, blah. But I played it as a character named Chad, who's like the rich guy. He's like the douchey fella. And his whole thing is he's got really high luck, Because he's a rich guy, and his whole life he's always had good luck. Like, that's the extension. That's the concept, right? So,
is there also a Stacy? Tell me there's also a Stacy.
You know what? There is a female version of him, and I don't. She's pretty new. She came out right before all the craziness happened. I never played as her, but she's basically the female version of him. But the character development that you could play with really comes from boosting your character and like adding things to him. So like I turned Chad from just being a lucky rich guy into no, like he could stand toe to toe with Jason. Like I made him Battle Chad. And it's like he swans with a baseball bat. He's anytime he hits you, he has a higher chance to knock you down, and his luck is maxed out. So like for me, I cared way more about him than I did, let's say, like Crispin Glover in Friday the 13th. I think it's part 3 or 4. It might be 4, the new one or whatever. But like I just didn't give a shit about those characters. I cared about the Tommy Jarvis character in the slasher film. That's the Corey Feldman, and then he eventually grows into like an adult. But again, like if you don't care about the people, then why would you care about anything going on in the story? Yeah. So I had to bring in a little video game there because the video game.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I mean,
no, that's fantastic.
Consumption Junction is for whatever. Definitely. Like,
indeed.
I mean, we can kind of bounce around, but I don't want to forget about it. I really want to talk about this because, you know, I just recently got a subscription to Shudder, which is like an all horror streaming movie platform. Yeah. And so I hit up friend of the show, John Golson, who is a movie critic and, you know, very knowledgeable about film. I was like, hey, give me some horror movie ideas because I just got Shudder. And I've watched about 4 of them and I loved them all, but I need to talk about this one. And I'm going to be very vague about it because he was with me as well. It's a Japanese film called One Cut of the Dead. And I will tell you what he told me. Go in completely blind. Don't look up the movie. Don't read a synopsis. Don't look at a review. Just watch the movie. Stick with it because you're going to get to a point where you're going to be like, why the fuck did Julian tell me to watch this movie? This is kind of weird and a little bit lame. Keep going because it will take you on a journey. It is a phenomenal little, all I'll tell you is that there's zombies in it.
Okay.
Okay. That's the only thing I'm going to say. But again, taking a very well-worn trope and just turning it slightly to the left and then giving you something completely fresh and new. Now, I don't know if it's Shudder exclusive. Like, I want to say, like, you might be able to just rent it digitally somewhere or maybe just buy a DVD somewhere. But I highly recommend it. I watched it. I loved it. And then I immediately showed it to a friend of mine. Like, we kind of shared our feed online and we watched it together. Like, I watched it the next day.
Oh, cool.
Like, that's how much I love this movie.
Nice.
So again, One Cut of the Dead. Cannot recommend it enough. Thank you, friend of the show, John Golson. I shouldn't call him personally friend of the show, John Golson. Thank you, John.
I love when you call him friend of the show, John Golson. That's his full title. Every time you got to say the entire thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
And actually, as we're recording this, he is doing his opening night for his second sketch comedy show.
Oh, man.
And it's the Halloween themed one. So I'm sorry that I can't be there right now, John, but I will be there next week.
Good luck, John.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've been seeing that movie on there because I'll watch something horror-y every day, but I was on there and I saw that, and then I listened to another podcast and they mentioned that on there. I was like, oh shit, okay, I guess I should watch it. Now that you've recommended it and John recommended it, I'm gonna have to watch it now. Shit.
Yeah, this is going to be like my horror version of Super Troopers, where I'm just like, oh, you haven't seen this yet? Oh, we're doing this right now.
Nice.
It's just going to be this movie that I'm like kind of like preaching to people because it's something very special and it's very tight. It's only like a 90-minute long movie, so it does not overstay its welcome whatsoever. And again, it is not what it seems, and it goes so many places in that 90 minutes. It's really, really cool.
That's awesome.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think it's on Amazon Prime. It might also be on Shudder, but a movie I really, 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 really love is Knife Plus Heart. I can't remember.
Oh, okay.
It's sort of like a modern Italian giallo, but set in, I guess it's the 80s during it's sort of about a serial killer who's loose on various homosexual porn sets. It's really good. It's beautiful. It's just incredible. It's just a really lovely to watch movie, and it's scary. No jump scares really, but it's got some gore, and like the Italian giallo, like the tradition is spectacular deaths and a lot of colorful death and stuff like that. It's good, but knife plus heart. Could not recommend it more.
Interesting.
Cool.
Yeah, I loved it.
Where does that one originate? Like, what country? Is it Italian? Or?
No, I think it's French or British. It is in English. I can tell you that.
Okay.
But yeah, I think it might be like a French-British co-production kind of thing.
Because it makes, like watching One Cut of the Dead, but then I think I also watched, because one of the ones that John recommended to me was called Terrified, which it's either a Mexican movie or an Italian movie. I couldn't quite tell because the languages are very similar. It's interesting when you watch not just horror, but just like genre type stuff that's produced in other countries, because there's always like a certain flavor to it that you don't get here.
Yeah. And
so one of the games that I played, and I didn't get to finish it, and I'm really bummed about it. And I've talked about it on the show before because I reviewed the first 2 episodes for Pixelbit, and then I guess they just never sent us the codes for the rest of it. But it was an episode. It originally was episodic. It was like a Kickstarted game called The Last Door, and it originates from Spain. And so it deals a lot with like kind of like Catholic imagery, and so it's like there's a very distinct flavor of like the images and stuff, but it is very much trying to so it's like a retro style pixel based game, but unlike most of like these indie retro style pixel based games, it's not trying to emulate the Nintendo or the Super Nintendo. It's very distinctly trying to emulate like old Sierra adventure games.
That's cool.
Like we're talking like King's Quest 4 era.
Nice.
Like, maybe even 3. So it's a very primitive looking game that does a lot with it still manages to be very effective in a horror way. But it's got a very engrossing story that sometimes gets a little bit hampered by it also relying on those old style point and click adventure tropes where it's like, this doesn't really make a lot of logical sense as to why I would pick this item up and I'm holding it in my inventory and then just kind of having to like use it with everything that I encounter just to see if like something works. Now a lot of the solutions are very logical and make sense, but some of them don't. And I literally got stuck in the final episode of season 2 where I tried to look the solution up online, but it's a small enough game to where like there's not really a lot of information out there. And I was like, I guess I'm not going to see the ending, and it makes me really sad, but it is really good, and it's a cheap game, so I do recommend it. You might be smarter than me. You probably are smarter than me, so you might be fine with getting to the end of the game, but it's a really interesting game, and again, like, it being a Spanish game, it's just got like some interesting design sensibilities and storytelling sensibilities, but then also I've never really seen a game trying to emulate that era of PC game, so it looks very different from other really indie pixel art games.
I think like that's part of the reason, and I know we talked about it a couple times, but I think that's a reason why I like Clock Tower so much is because it's very much an Italian giallo interpreted through a Japanese game developer, where it has like the same kind of spectacular, beautiful deaths, even to the point where the main character is modeled after Jennifer Connelly, who starred in Dario Argento's Phenomenon.
So Games My Mom Found, which is one of our podcast friends, they just covered the first Clock Tower from the Super Nintendo. A couple weeks ago, and I did not know any of that stuff. I thought that was very interesting. Because that era of game development, you don't think of designers even going to that well as being like, oh, this is influenced by this film or whatever. Like, that's more of a, to me, that's more of like a PlayStation 1 and beyond type of thing.
Yeah, but it's really interesting. So, I know it sounds like I'm like a big Giallo fan or whatever, but, when they're done right and they're great, like the original Suspiria, for example, Knife plus Heart, Clock Tower, you can't really get much better than that. I mean, the original Suspiria, my God, what a masterpiece. But I think like when I'm writing or like when I'm thinking about horror and stuff, and I'm thinking about the things that I like, it's the idea. I wrote a Clock Tower screenplay 15 years ago just for fun, and it's just like, what was I thinking at the time? Because like I don't own the IP to this, number one, and number two, why would anybody make a movie about Clock Tower? Even though they talked about doing it for a while with the PlayStation 2 Clock Towers that came out. I remember the director.
I mean,
what was that? What?
There was going to be a Pac-Man movie for a little bit there. Like, Uwe Boll was actually working on a Pac-Man movie
but
for a little bit.
But that makes sense to me. Pac-Man makes sense. It's a monster mega franchise kind of thing. Like,
I guess I was going to say I don't know how you make a movie out of that, but there was a whole animated series, so I guess I'm just...
Yeah, name recognition alone, you would probably get people to get into a theater with it. Yeah, it makes sense.
Like that weird Ridley Scott Monopoly movie. Do you remember hearing about that? Like, what the fuck?
And there's going to be a Candyland movie. Like, I think there was a big rush towards that after Pirates of the Caribbean came out. They're like, oh, we'll just take another weird franchise that you don't think would make a movie and make a movie.
And then Battleship was a huge flop. And then it was sorry,
God.
guys.
I will never forget watching Battleship. That was one of the things that turned me off of movies forever. God,
but you gotta love that the missiles were they were shaped like the little pegs from the game.
Pegs, that's true.
Oh my God. I would just never forget, like, I dated a girl who legit thought that movie was great and could not wait to show me that movie, and like wasn't like out of irony, like just really wanted to see that movie and thought it was good. And I was like, I went to the theater and she's like, so what did you think? I was like, I thought that was one of the worst pieces of shit I've ever seen. And I don't know how because I'm always really honest in every opinion I give. I can't sugarcoat things. I was like, that was terrible. And I do not understand anything about what you see in this. So I don't know where we go from here.
And there's like, I enjoy some things that are bad that, my girlfriend, I'll show her something and she's like, I do not like this, but I love it. Like Blue Velvet, Blue Velvet's like one of my favorite movies of all time. And it's like one of the things that made me want to start writing anything. So I showed her Blue Velvet and she was like repulsed and she hated it. But I feel like that's the response a woman should have to a movie that's essentially about systemic misogyny. But at the same time, for me, it's like, no, but you don't get it. Like, Frank Booth is a genius and he's such a great bad guy and blah, 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 blah. So like, so things like that, or, oh God, what's a movie that I love that's really just, Driven. I love the movie Driven, but with Stallone, where he's the Formula One race car driver. It's Rocky on wheels. I love that movie. It's such a piece of shit, though. Like, I could acknowledge that it's terrible. Yeah. But, there's all these things that we love that, we don't, that not everybody else gets into. But like when I'm writing, I'm trying to think like, how can I take that thing that's really terrible and like maybe make it kind of fun, or like make it.
That's the way to go.
For sure. Even like the worst things can have like a positive impact, I guess.
You heard it here on this podcast. Rob is now working on his Battlefield 2 screenplay, so be on the lookout for that.
You sunk my battleship.
And I mean, people like this show, so it is true that like the worst shit can sometimes be
that's
like,
so self-effacing.
That's how we roll on this show.
Yeah.
So
now that Justin is here, we are the most self-deprecating podcast like in the world.
Yeah. Yep, you're welcome, Internet. We're here to make you feel better about yourselves by making us feel worse about ourselves. I don't know how it works.
We're Sex Bomb, and we're here to make you feel better about yourself by making us feel bad about ourselves.
Yeah. Woo!
I've been doing like a couple different podcasts and stuff like that, but this one I've been looking forward to, and I actually did like a lot of homework for. So like I've been excited about it and talking about different things and talking about the stories and stuff like that. And so your favorite you mentioned was the one in Japan, the cultural appropriation or beautiful love. That one.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Good. Well, so far.
Yeah.
I would say that one, and then the opener have been my favorites so far. But yeah, because I was like when I saw that it was over, I was like, oh shit. But then I was like, that covered so much in such a such a short amount of time, and I was like, that was perfect. Like I don't need more. It's like it's just like the right amount, but you covered like so much. Like it was really well done. I really liked it.
Thank you. Yeah, I was worried about that one because like I didn't know how people were going to react to it. So like because there is a lot in there, but I guess and the reaction has been pretty unanimously positive about it. I was like, shit. All right, cool.
That one, honestly, that one you should try to find a really good like webcomic artist and then convert that into like a webcomic. Just that story. I think that
cool
would
idea.
work really well. Sometimes you'll see those like longer form webcomics where they're really trying to tell like a personal story. Like I think that one would like fit that perfectly, and also maybe get some different eyes on the book.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's fun. That's a fun idea. It's funny, like when I'm at school or whatever, I'll bring my laptop or whatever, and I'm not connected to the school's Wi-Fi because they're fascists. But I
show up.
I have the second book on the computer or whatever. So like every once in a while, like I'll be in like the teacher's lounge and I'll be like, and I have like my headphones on and stuff, and I'll be listening to the music or whatever that I have like on the stupid desktop because I can't connect to the internet. But like some of the teachers will be like, "Oh, what are you working on there?" And I'm just like, "I'm just writing lesson plans, man. Like I don't know. Don't worry about it." And it's just I'm like constantly hammering away, and like I'll come home, my girlfriend will be baking or whatever, and I'll just be like, "I just wrote a story. Great, thanks, bye," and I'll throw the computer away. But it's weird. Like I have pages and pages and pages of like ideas and outlines and stuff like that, and it's just like you hit this like weird log jam where it's like, how much should I put in? How much should I take out? What should go in? What should go out? Like there was supposed to be a 12th story in the first book that I took out because it just did not fit at all. But it fits the second book because the tone of the second book is very dramatically different than the first book. Like the tone of the second book is very ugly. Like it's very it's more about like if the first book is about emotion and how people deal with loss or emotion or whatever you want to say, the second book is about fear and like how people kind of like deal with their fears and how fear affects people and how knowledge can affect people and stuff like that. So two very different ideas.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like to tell the people that I work with, the people that I'm now working with now that I'm like new there, like, yeah, I'm writing about horror and the deepest, darkest parts of our fears.
Yeah.
Like, cool, let's get you out of here immediately. Have you around the children.
I mean, I'm always a fan of Worst Foot Forward, so that sounds fine. Yeah.
I did that. You know, it's funny. This guy came up to me. I was at work or whatever. It was literally my first day there was the other day. And like, he comes up to me, this older gentleman. He comes up to me and he's like, "Why don't you have an electric car?" That was his opening salvo to me. I was just looking at this.
Did he then bend over and smell his own fart?
Dude, I was
This guy.
I was floored by this. Like, how the fuck
This guy
do you start?
sounds fantastic. Please go on. I'm intrigued.
I couldn't handle it. I literally was just staring at the guy like, what? And he was like, "Why don't you have an electric car?" And literally it took me a second and I was like, "Because Volkswagen hasn't made a good enough one yet." That's the only thing I could think of to say to this guy. And he thought that was like the best answer ever. And he like gave me multiple fist bumps. And I'm like, what the fuck? Where am I?
I love those interactions. Yes, where you're like, I just said words and apparently you agreed with them. Great. I'm happy. I'm happy with the turnout on this.
It was so bizarre. And then I saw him again and he came in and he's like, "Oh, real busy today, huh?" And I have like literally an armful of papers where obviously I'm busy today. So like, "Oh, real busy today, huh?" And I was just like, ha, yeah. And then I just ran down the hallway to get away from the guy.
Sorry, I'm just getting this image of like a Telltale game where let's call him Dave. And so as Rob's running away, you see Dave will remember that.
Yeah, Dave will remember that. Yes. That's exactly it.
His name might be Dave. I have no idea what it is, to be honest. Like, I don't know any of my coworkers' names. Absolutely none.
Yeah, we had a meeting with my new manager today, and she's new to the company, so she was getting to know everybody. And she's like, "So we're gonna go around the room and we're gonna introduce ourselves and say a little bit about ourselves." And they got to me, and I was like, "I'm Julian. I worked at this department for 3 years, and I've been in this department for 1 year, and I'm here to work. I don't talk about myself at work." Like, I'm sorry, like I just don't like. Yeah. It's not a thing. The turnover here is so high, I'm not going to remember any of your names because you will be gone in a year. So I'm just going to keep my head down and do the best job that I can.
I try to give like the worst facts about myself in situations like that. and I do it super awkwardly. Like I'm like, "Hi, I'm Justin. I'm a human person. I don't really like candied yams very much. I mean, sometimes they're okay, but not usually. Like, I'm just not a big fan. Like, there's something about the texture of them, you know? And just keep going on about different things like that, and that's what I tend to do. And people usually don't respond, and that's the greatest part of it. So
I would back away slowly.
Yeah, exactly.
Find myself like stifling as much weirdness as humanly possible, because like when it comes to things like that, I'm always like, yeah, hi, I'm Rob, and
yeah, you have to.
Books. Yeah, and like, but in the back of my head, I'm just like, I'm picturing myself as like covered in mud and just like totally out of my mind, just grabbing a microphone and screaming 9/11 was an inside job, and then running away. Like I just want to like let loose sometimes, and like the handful of times in my teaching career that like I've let the curtain down and people have like seen the inside, they've never forgotten it, and they thought it was like the funniest, weirdest thing ever. And I'm like, yo, man, that's my truth, brother. I gotta live it.
I just wish that I could be there and then just like randomly like play old NWP clips. Like, hey, here's what Rob thinks about Cars.
Yeah. Oh, the
here's
movie.
Rob talking about getting ass fucked by Bret Easton Ellis.
Your gentle voice I hear, your words echo inside. You said you love me, that you love me, and I want to see it through. Feels just like I'm falling. Is there nothing I can do? Wonder if you hear my calling. I'm here.
You know what I think about the old episode that we did where we talked about how I said I would keep an Asari in a shack in the backyard from Mass Effect. Remember I said that?
Yeah, I think that wasn't even a Nerds Without Pants episode. That was like an old Pixel Talk episode.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Whatever, I stand by it. So I'm working on this second collection, which I'm hoping will be maybe it'll be at least a third longer. I keep saying it's going to be double the length of the book that's out currently, but I'm also playing around with the idea of maybe being like 1.5 times the size. I don't know. It depends on how much I could squeeze in. And then this summer I'm going to start my first feature-length novel. And
Cool.
I've told like 2 or 3 people about what it's about, and their reaction tells me that I'm on the right path. So
Nice.
I'm not going to say too much, but it has a lot to do with demonology, and it has a lot to
Sold.
Yeah, was that sold?
Yeah.
There you go.
And it's so, and this is like another silly thing. I've been talking to this amazing artist, this cover artist, and I desperately want him to do the cover of my third book. And he already did a great cover for it, like a quick, easy little sketch design that looks beautiful. But then I was like, you know what? I should probably have you do the second one too. And then, like, this is the thing that I was thinking about. I don't like his cover for the second one, but I love his cover for the third one. So, like, I don't know how to tell him, like, yeah, I don't like that one, but I love this one. But that's like the collaborative process. That was like one of the harder parts about the first book, was working with a cover artist and getting him to do what I wanted. So that was difficult, because like a lot, if you look at the horror genre, a lot of the books have like a spooky mansion on it, or they have like a guy standing in front of flames with a machine gun. Like, all these covers are weird, and I didn't want any of that stuff, which is probably bad, because like that's the stuff that sells, right? But I wanted my own thing. So,
well, I think usually a lot of those books, like, they're also, like, at least the ones that, if we're talking about like that kind of like self-published Amazon thing,
yeah,
like a lot of them also tend to sell on like their batshit premises, where it's like, you know, like,
this soldier with spina bifida is going to take on an army of spiders. Like, something.
Well, no, I was thinking more like hermaphroditic T-Rexes with machine guns making love to crows or something like that, and that's like the actual title of the book.
Good.
And it's like there's a very niche
Yeah.
demographic, but it's going to sell gangbusters with them.
It's true. And the Amazon algorithm is so strange because and like I'm learning this stuff, you know, so like Amazon really, surprisingly, they do give a shit about reviews. Like they really do care. And so like if, you know, a book that I love, I'm reading this great collection of short stories right now. It only has 12 reviews altogether, 12 or 20, some like relatively low amount, but it's considered to be like one of the modern masterpieces of horror writing. And I'm like, but it has so few ratings, and yet it's still so highly regarded and highly rated. So like, it's really weird, but like Amazon really is like, okay, good. Yeah. This has a lot of reviews. We're going to promote the hell out of it, blah, 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 all organically on their own. So like, I'm trying to figure out like, how does that work? How does their review system work? And like, how do they look at that so heavily? So there's a lot of like weird algorithm type stuff too that goes into the publishing of the book, and very strange. It's interesting, but it's strange at the same time. It's like stuff that I'd never imagine I'd have to think about.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I guess that's like the benefit of a big publishing company or whatever. It's like they do all that shit for you. You just got to worry about type the words.
Well, maybe that'll be your fourth book. Like it'll be like, oh, here's the you know, we'll just back up the dump truck of money. Now write something else. You're like,
Sweet.
okay,
that would be pretty sweet. That's after the webcomic comes out of the short story. I love that idea. I would legitimately like to do that. I think that's really smart.
I think that'd be really cool. I see a lot of stuff on that on Tumblr, and they always get like, you know, a lot of reblogs and people into them and stuff like that.
Awesome.
So.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
It's never been easier to put out content, you know? Like it's just nice. I don't know. It's like when we were kids, like, oh, how do you make a movie? Spend a shitload of money and, you know, rent the cameras and buy the film and edit this thing. Like now it's like, oh, cool.
But after you go like to college and do all that stuff, right? Like, and then you intern for 5 years, and then
it's crazy. Where you do the Kevin Smith thing and sell all of your comic books to fund your.
Oh, is that how he started?
Yeah, that's how he funded Clerks. And then after that movie became a hit, he bought them all back. He bought every one of them back, and it's like, good, man. I'm glad that he was able to do that. But like now, I watched a movie. I can't remember what it's called. It might be called Icicle. It's a short film. It was made by these students in a high school. I think it was for like a project. And all it's about, the whole thing was shot on like an iPhone 5. And it looks incredible. Like I said, it's just a short film. And it's all about one friend plotting to kill another with an icicle because the icicle will melt and there won't be any murder weapon.
Oh, yeah.
That's
classic. Yeah.
And it was great. And it's like, God damn it, these fucking teenagers did this. And it's so good. And it's just an iPhone 5. Like, I don't know. So it's just nice and easy. And like this book I wrote on Google, on the, Google Docs, because I read on a writer's forum that I joined that writing on Google Docs is good because it backs up literally like every keystroke that you do and something happens. So I did it on there. Then I put it into Word and then it went into PDF and everything from there.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
All this nerdy writer stuff.
No, it's fantastic. I love it. Yeah. I don't want to, like, I know, you got work tomorrow, so I don't want to keep you too long, Rob, but Justin, did you want to hit up some, like, one or two quick things before we head on into the cage match, and then we'll just put a pin in the rest for next episode?
Yeah, sure. I'll go over, I guess, the important ones real fast. So I played a little bit of Indivisible, which is kind of like the new Valkyrie profile type game. Has like a really cool style to it. I never played Valkyrie Profile. I don't know, like, if the original one was like this. There's a lot of, like, platforming in this one, and that it's kind of cool.
Everybody who's talking about this game has not played Valkyrie Profile, and so it's like, I need that comparison, but nobody can make the comparison because I really liked Valkyrie Profile.
I think if you like Valkyrie Profile, I've heard the battle system is, like, almost spot on, but I find the battles, like, drag on a little too long. In certain places, and I've gotten to a point in the game where I kind of don't like what they did because it requires a lot of backtracking. Like they're kind of like, okay, you can go to one of these 3 cities, but you need this other thing that you didn't know you needed to keep progressing in this city. And I was like, oh, well, fuck me. I guess I got to go all the way back and go to the one city that it was kind of bullshit, and it kind of pissed me off. And I haven't really been back to it after that. But like, all the boss fights are cool. Like, they incorporate the platforming into it, which is neat until it's like fucking frustrating. And like, and it has a lot of like Castlevania type elements where like, oh, I see this thing that I can't get to right now, but eventually I'll get a ability to go back and be able to get to that thing, stuff like that. And like, all the characters and designs are like really fun. Like Ajna, the main character, is really fun. Razmi is like the second or third character you get, and she's really cool. She's like this like weird goth girl who wears like a dead tiger on her head, and she's super fun the entire time.
My kind of girl.
Yeah, it's real fun writing. I like it, but like, I'm not like over the moon about it. Like, I've kind of been playing it in these short bursts because like at some point I just go, I'm kind of bored with this, and it just wears me out. The other one I guess I'll talk about is I played some NeoCab, and that's an interesting one. That one's like kind of like right up my alley. It's like,
I heard Alex Navarro talking about this on the Beastcast, and I texted you. I was like, "Are you playing NeoCab? Because it sounds like you need to play NeoCab."
Yeah, I definitely did play NeoCab. It reminds me a lot of Valhalla in a lot of ways. Basically, you're just like a taxi driver, and you're new in town, and you're invited there by your best friend, and she's like, "Hey, I'm going to disappear now, and it's a big mystery. So yeah, solve the mystery of where she went." And basically, that's obviously, long story short, that's what happens.
I'm going to disappear now.
I wish
Bye-bye.
that would have made the game so much better if that's what it was.
Awesome.
I like it. I think
that's what my like two girlfriends ago should have told me. I'm going to disappear now, so bye for
yeah, exactly. But it's cool. It goes some places, but I don't know. I didn't like it as much as I like Valhalla. Like, I found myself skipping through a lot of like the side content. I found it kind of interesting. Like, the style is really cool, and like basically all you're doing is talking to people in the cab. You're not doing any of the actual driving. You're just picking from dialogue choices, and depending on how your character feels, like if they're made mad by a conversation, certain dialogue things are locked off, so you can't pick them, and which is a really neat thing to do. And I liked a lot of it. I found some of the rides really fun. Like, there's these one guys where you get in and they think you're a robot, and you kind of have to decipher that what they want you to actually do. And I failed the shit out of this, so heads up if you do play this game and get to here. They want you to actually pretend like you're a robot. They give you this test and it's full of questions, and you're supposed to answer them like a robot. And I didn't, because I thought it was like, oh no, I want to convince them that I'm a person. They didn't want that. And then there's this actress girl who like rewards you for playing along with her the entire time. Some of it's interesting. Where it goes in the end, I wasn't super thrilled with, and I felt like Valhalla had this way of like, hey, this is going to happen and you're going to see everything, which was really relaxing to me. This one has like, hey, you can probably miss stuff here, and it's kind of going to require another playthrough. And there's this weird pressure on you because they're kind of trying to push the story forward with certain events that happen. And I didn't really like that. And where the ending goes was kind of like, all right, yeah, I guess. I don't know. It was mediocre. I didn't hate it, but I wasn't over the moon about it. And then, let's see, I randomly platinumed a game called One Night Stand, which is interesting. So that one is a game where you basically wake up and you wake up after drinking, and you're next to a girl and she's naked, and you don't know anything that happened because you were blackout drunk. So you're basically, every time she leaves the room, you have to like look around her room and look through her stuff and basically try to figure out.
Not creepy at all.
Yeah, try to figure out who she is and what you did the night before, and all this whatever amount of things. And like, the gameplay is really interesting, I guess. It's basically like you're just trying to get different endings, and a playthrough of it takes anywhere from like 20 minutes, half an hour to like 2 minutes, because you can start fast forwarding things, and you can pick a certain thing and she'll immediately kick you the fuck out. So it's interesting. Like, you can test your patience and stuff like that. Like
my last one night stand lasted about 2 minutes, so that tracks.
Right. And this one is like, the endings range from you like becoming good friends with her to you getting kicked out while wearing a pair of her underwear on, stuff like that. It's funny, it's cute, it's nothing over the moon. It's like $6, so it wasn't like wallet breaking. I kind of like the visual style of it. So
okay, I'm trying to figure out where in Justin Hamm's mind he's like, I'm gonna play One Night Stand.
It has like a cool visual style, and I don't know how to describe it. It's almost like pencil art, and it was neat. It's the game's very British, like in the writing and everything.
Okay.
So, check it out. I'm not going to say it's for everybody because it's definitely not, but it was a stupid little fun thing to do for 3 hours. And I guess I'll just touch on the last thing since I'm going pretty fast here, I think. Disco Elysium, I haven't played too much of it. It's like a weird isometric RPG where you wake up after 3 nights of trying to kill yourself drinking or something, and you're trying to figure out what happened, and you're trying to solve this mystery of this guy hanging from a tree in a yard. It's really, really dark and weird, and like pieces of your brain talk to you in separate occasions, and they're telling you all this weird shit, and like it's like brain synapses firing off, and then you can internalize thoughts. Like the game picked up on the fact that I was apologizing to everybody that I met because they would tell me the things that I did during this 3-night bender or whatever, and I was like, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to do that." And the game it gave me an achievement called the sorriest cop ever, and I was like, "Yeah, that's me, that's me." So I was like, that was kind of cool. So I haven't played too much of it yet, so I can't speak too much on it. I'll probably touch on this one a little bit more next week, but it's interesting. It's definitely like acid trip weird, so it's kind of cool.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I've definitely got some more to talk about, but we can save that for next episode.
All right.
Because I think, gentlemen, it is time to lower the cage and step into the ring for Video Game Cage Match.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the greatest spectacle on earth. This will be one hellacious ride tonight. This is a 15-foot high steel cage, ladies and gentlemen. Who will triumph? Who will prevail? And who will realize their dream?
And this episode, or this matchup rather, is coming to us as suggested by Joey, our guest from last episode, who suggested Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver for PS1, also Dreamcast, versus MediEvil for the PlayStation 1. We're kind of moving into the spooky time. We actually got a lot of really good recommendations, so we'll probably like thread those out even past like Halloween and stuff like that. But I was going to go first, but Rob, before we started recording, you said that you had like a bold statement on this pick. So and you would listen to the last episode, so you're aware of like what cage match is, so you're up to speed of how ridiculous it can be. Mm-hmm. So I will give the floor to you, sir.
I will start with the ridiculous statement that I believe is 1000% accurate. The reason this particular game wins, and the game that wins in this case is Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver, the reason it wins is because Blood Rain is a spin-off of the Legacy of Kain series.
What?
Yes, and Blood Rain is one of the worst video game movies of all time, and thus that would not exist without Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver. But yes, I believe Blood Rain is a spin-off of Legacy of Kain. I think later on, Kain and her are in a game together, and then she gets her own game. But I like Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver. I remember liking that game a lot. It was like Diablo, or it looked like Diablo a little bit to me, and it was pretty fun. The second one was pretty great too, and MediEvil was not memorable to me at all. But I did enjoy Legacy of Kain 1 and 2, and the Blood Rain games are cool too, and those wouldn't exist without Legacy of Kain. So,
No,
you want me to see if I'm right?
No. We don't need
fact
facts
check on
in this
yeah,
match.
No,
all right,
there's
all
no
right.
fact checking
No.
here. So
I want someone to
Yeah.
fact check me. One of your listeners fact check me on that shit.
there you go.
Yeah, then you can throw it in the comments. I'll let Rob know if someone calls him out.
You
on
will
it.
too. I'll get a text. I'll be in the middle of a lesson, and Julian will be like, "Listen, asshole, should have bet on this one." So
You motherfucker! You embarrassed me in front of all of my listeners. No, but Rob, you are right. Soul Reaver does win this match, and it wins this match because one of these games is voiced by a Transformer, and it ain't MediEvil. Raziel is also Prowl from the original Transformers cartoon.
Nice.
Therefore, it wins. Also, I didn't realize until a comment from a listener that I've been spelling MediEvil wrong this entire time because of that fucking PlayStation game.
Mm-hmm.
So it loses because it makes me look really stupid.
That sounds right. Yeah, that sounds right.
Like someone on a podcast, because there's a remake coming out this year, and someone was saying like, oh, you need to say it this way so they want people to know the pun. And I'm like, what pun? Like I didn't know there was anything weird with the name literally until like this month, and I'm like, oh
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
It's also why I can't spell Renaissance. So like anytime that I talk about going to the Ren Fair, I always just abbreviate it to Ren Fair because I can't spell Renaissance to save my life.
Renaissance isn't an easy word
not
to
a
spell.
smart man.
So
No, it's not.
Renaissance.
Thank God for autocorrect.
Yeah, seriously.
Oh, so once again, I've played neither of these games, so I'm just basing them on whatever, I guess. But so
Yeah, what the fuck, man? Like you need to start playing video.
here-
What have you been
I
doing
know.
with your life?
Well, here's the thing. Listen, Soul Reaver came out at a time when I didn't own a PlayStation 1, which is why I never played it. By the time I did own one, it was pretty old by then, and like I was 12, so I didn't have money. And all my monies went to Final Fantasy and stuff like that. So that's why I never got around to playing it. But I mean, Raziel looks a lot cooler than the other guy. I mean, he's like missing his jaw or whatever, and that's pretty fucking rad. So that's who I'm going with. Like, I mean, I wanted to try Soul Reaver. Like, I'd never wanted to try MediEvil or whatever it is. I don't care. It's stupid looking. Like, the main character of that game looks like a fucking Sam's Choice Jack Skellington, and I'm just not into it. And yeah, just
Holy
fucking
shit.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm dropping bombs. Like, I just don't care about that
From the
guy.
rafters. My God.
Yeah. So yeah, the answer clearly, Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver wins this for me. Like, fuck that other guy. Sorry. And one final point. If I learned anything from friend of the show John Golson, you don't remake a perfect game, Julian. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. And MediEvil's getting a remake, and Soul Reaver is
Nope.
not. Yeah,
Don't remake
okay.
a perfect game.
That's a good point.
Yep.
So that's a clean sweep from Nerds Without Pants. But as always, we are not the be-all and end-all for a video game cage match, because our listeners, as well as booking the matches, are our referees. So we'll go ahead and head over to pixelbit.com and go to the show thread for episode 162, where Xrian says, I never cared for MediEvil. The game just never seemed to be interesting to me. Maybe because I just didn't care for the protagonist at a glance. Soul Reaver, on the other hand, looked pretty awesome, and the main character was instantly appealing to me. So I'm definitely going Soul Reaver. Undead Vampire beats Goofy Skeleton Man any day.
Yep.
That is correct, sir.
Yep.
I mean, I will say, to back up or to clarify, Justin, they're both missing their lower jaws.
Yeah.
But Raziel, he wears it better.
He looks way cooler than the other guy.
I remember the opening to Legacy of Kain also. Like, you get killed by your villagers because you're becoming a vampire, and then you come back and get revenge and kill all those assholes for killing you. Like, it's just so badass. Like, how do you beat that? It's like the opening to Highlander. Fucking rocks.
Oh, I'm a big Highlander fan. Yeah, that's okay. Yep, even more sold now. All right, up next we have San Andreas, and San Andreas says, probably Soul Reaver, since it was a bit more aligned with my taste in gaming. I didn't really play much of either one, though somehow Sir Dan Fortescue's name has stuck in my head. I think they're remaking MediEvil now, which is exactly why because it's not a perfect game. So,
That is true. I am interested in that remake. I find it interesting that, we had both the Crash Bandicoot and Spyro trilogy remakes as one game, but MediEvil, they're just making like there's only 2 MediEvil games, but they're only remaking the first one.
Right.
And I think it costs almost as much as those other 2 remakes. So it's a little, like, the value proposition's a little dicey there for me.
I don't know. It's nothing about that game has ever called to me. That was one when they announced they were remaking. I was like, but why? Like, do people care? And I'm sure they do. And if you're a big MediEvil fan, I'm sorry. But I did not know that game had as big a fan base. I mean, it's either they're trying to like get a new fan base, like, hey, look at this cool old game that we want to make more of, but nobody seems to remember or care about. I don't know. It's weird, but you know.
Yeah.
Transmet 2033 says, Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver, whatever Raziel is is way cooler and edgier than Sir Daniel.
Yeah, and actually, I don't know how we got through a whole episode about video game edgelords and didn't mention anybody from the Legacy of Kain.
I know, especially you. I expected that out of you, Julian.
I don't know what happened.
Man, you're the Legacy of Kain guy.
I know. I don't know what happened there. Like, those games are edgy as fuck.
They are.
You can throw up either one of them. They're both like the edgiest of edgelords.
It happens, man. It happens. We all make mistakes.
Yeah. Well, last but certainly not least, at Pixelbit, we have Superstep, who says, I guess MediEvil, only played the demo, but still played more of it than Soul Reaver, and I think I'm pulling for the underdog in this match. Hard to tell.
Yeah.
No, I think you're the first person to say MediEvil.
Yeah, he's the only one.
Yeah.
Joey. So yeah, once again, just like, you know, yelling into the void.
I mean, some people like Sam's Choice food. I mean, some people just do. It's fine.
Yeah.
Ain't nothing wrong with that.
I like Aldi brand pizza, so that's cool.
Exactly. Sometimes it's good. Sometimes it's good.
Yeah.
It's true.
Now, before we head over to Twitter, Justin, we have Adam Bradbury on Facebook who says, the Legacy of Kain series was a favorite of mine. Raziel definitely could have made your edgelord list, too. Yeah. The Soul Reaver games puzzles don't hold up these days, rather slow and tedious, but it has the best impalement combat.
Oh, fact.
And also get the voice acting and story.
Indeed.
Yeah, he's right about the impalement thing. I remember that.
Yeah, that stuff is really good.
Yeah.
I do think that the puzzles are very much of their time. But I do like the way that, you know, like the old Tomb Raider games, a lot of them were about, like, solving smaller parts of a much larger puzzle in order to progress. And I do like that way of, like, you're kind of just slowly chipping away at this much bigger task. I kind of dig that stuff.
All right. Over on Twitter, Justin. Over on Twitter, up first, I have Jeffka, and he is at Justoff. He says, Legacy of Kain. I don't know why I said Khan. Legacy of Kain versus MediEvil. Easy. MediEvil. Why? Medieval history is my area of expertise, and MediEvil is clearly a pun on that word. Hey, no one said they had to be good reasons. It's a fair point. No one had.
Jeffker, are you calling me an idiot?
Ooh.
I mean, you're right.
We are.
I just feel very called out by the comments. Now, Red Venom actually replied to us on the tweet, so I've got that one next, Justin, who says, the battle for a jaw. Raziel may be the cooler looking one, but Sir Daniel won me with his smile. Plus, that PS1 demo was really cool. So, I mean, hey, MediEvil's starting to build up some steam.
It's making a comeback. It's pulling a Hogan right now.
Yeah, it's hulking up a little bit. We'll see if it can actually mount some offense here.
Yeah, you never know. Up next, I have Esteban Islas, and he says, I don't remember much of both games, but I know I played MediEvil before Legacy of Kain, and we have the remake soon that I'm going to give a shot. My vote goes to the underdog one-eyed skeleton, Sir Daniel Fortescue.
Wow.
Wow. Okay, this is actually getting
close.
into a fight.
This is ridiculous.
This is crazy. This is crazy.
So yeah, Soul Reaver does end up taking this cage match. It's way closer than I expected it to be. I expected Soul Reaver to come in with like some Brock Lesnar type shit and just like suplex poor MediEvil to hell, but MediEvil got some strikes in there. MediEvil got a reversal or two in there. But at the end of the day, Soul Reaver took down MediEvil, and Raziel absorbed Sir Dan Fortescue's soul, as is his tradition. So that has got Soul Reaver taking down MediEvil in a pretty good match. Now, it is time for the next match, because there is always another one, at least until we get towards the end of the year where we start doing more specialty type stuff. But I'm going to pick this one from Philip, or on Twitter, at PK Becker, who says RE2 versus RE2 2019.
Oh, Jesus.
Which I think is going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be the first ever video game cage match mirror match, but not quite.
Undertaker versus the fake Undertaker.
Yeah, that's a good matchup comparison. Yes, I like it.
Yes. So let us know who wins out in a battle of nostalgia versus the new hotness. And again, we will want those comments by 8:30 Central Time on October 29th. And Justin, remind us what we're going to be doing for Stage Select that episode.
I want to know who people's favorite created characters are, like your own stuff. And if you don't like that sort of thing, just make one up, or just send me what your favorite default created character was from a game.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's a fun idea.
I think it'll be fun.
That should be a lot of fun. I've definitely got some stories percolating already.
I have a ton. I can't wait.
Yeah. I'm like jealous. I can't do mine. Shit.
I mean, you can always just send it to me. I'll read it on the show.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That is true.
And we will, again, want all of that. You can go to pixelbit.com for the show thread for episode 163. You can also hit us up on Twitter at NWPcast, or on Facebook at facebook.com/nerdswithoutpants podcast. And again, we will want those selections and comments, as well as your secret code phrases, by 8:30 Central Time on October 29th. Again, we're recording a day early, so you've got a little bit less time to get to that. My apologies. But that is going to do it. We're going to start wrapping up. Rob, we definitely want to know where people can find you, and also find the book. So why don't you lay that on us?
You can find the book on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. It's probably easier just to search my name. So Robert Ottone, Ottone, and it should pop up. But the book is called People, a horror anthology about love, loss, life, and things that go bump in the night. And you can also you can reach out to me on Instagram at Robert Ottone, ROBERTOTTONE, and also you can throw a follow to at Spooky House Press, which is my little imprint that I created to kind of just sort of like spread the word about things, and also hopefully highlight some other writers as well. I'd like to do an anthology of other writers that I edit and curate. So working on that. I've had a couple submissions. They're going to be posted in a few weeks, or over the coming weeks rather. But yeah, you can do all of that fun stuff. You can find me on the Facebooks too, I guess, as well.
Right on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Justin? Oh, I forgot. What's going on at the bottom of the page?
Oh, no, you're good. I almost forgot about it myself, honestly. So next episode, we're going to be talking about a real scary topic for my sister. And that is, of course, wind energy. Because my sister is terrified of wind turbines. That is a real legit fear that she has. So I found a list about that. And we're going to also find, she also found some list about how to get over infatuation with somebody, which seems interesting. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. And then we have some unexpected emails. So that may be pretty good. It may be pretty good. I don't know.
Nice. I feel in your case, the way you get over infatuation is you take them to see Battleship.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And where can they find you, Justin?
You can find me on Twitter at Tyrone_Swift, or you can find that podcast that I just talked about at Clickbait Update.
And you can find me at Julian_Titus, and you can find Patrick at Some Boss. And I think that is going to do it. Rob, thank you so much for being on. It's been a blast talking to you after all this time.
It was.
And then just personally, I know it's been hard with your dad, and, even though we don't get to talk like we used to, I love you, man.
Oh,
and
thanks, man. I love you too, brother.
We go back a really long way, and I don't say this I don't say it just to say it, but I I only say it when I mean it. So if you ever need anything or if you ever need to talk, like, I'm always here.
Thanks, man. That means a lot.
Yeah, but that is going to do it for this episode. So for myself, Justin, and a special thanks to Rob, thanks for listening, and keep it pantsless, Internet.
Spoke of tortured souls, so outrageous the toll. You can lose all you have. He refused to give in to the town that takes all. Survive. You must have the will. This movie doesn't end the way we want all the time. When he shouts at the moon, she's got.
So where are you from, Justin?
I am from Ohio.
Oh, the O in Ohio.
Yes. Yeah, it's
Ooh.
very.
Yes.
Is that a movie? I don't know.
Yeah. What part of Ohio are you from?
Sandusky, Ohio.
How close
Where-
is that to Bedford?
I don't know.
You know? Okay.
That sounds like a familiar place, though.
Okay.
There's a lot of like little weird towns spread out throughout Ohio, and I'll be damned if I remember all of them. Yeah, they're all like spread out. It's not like in a line or anything. Like, it's just like you go through like miles and miles of country, and then there's like a little town, and then half the time if you're just driving through it, you'd never even know what the name of it was.
Yeah, it's like the town that I lived in Ohio was like just a little bitty town that nobody knows, and yeah.
You're in Austin, though, so that's not far from Corpus Christi, right? That's like, what, an hour and a half, 2 hours from Corpus
It's 4
Christi?
hours. It's 4 hours. To
4
Corpus.
hours?
Yeah.
Fuck. Okay.
Oh, dude, Texas is huge, man.
Yeah.
My girl's got family in Texas, and she's like, "Oh, we have to go visit them." And I'm like, I will go whenever you want, but I just need to go to. I need to go. I need to meet Julian face to face so I can give him a big fucking sloppy kiss. That's number one. And number two, I need to go to the Alamo. And number three, I need to go to Dealey Plaza to see where Kennedy got his head smashed open. So
I'm going to Dealey Plaza for the first time in November. I'm gonna miss the anniversary by 1 day because
that makes me so mad.
Because the 22nd's on a Friday, but I'll be off Saturday, so I'm gonna go on Saturday.
No, it happened on the 23rd.
No, I thought it was November 22nd, 63.
No, he got his head blasted open on the 23rd. No, yeah, you're right. It is the 22nd. 11/22/63. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Motherfucker. I'm so jealous. You have to send me pictures.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Because, like, that's so cool. I'm glad this can only see my chest and up because I'm not wearing pants. I actually am not wearing pants.